What is going on, everyone? Today I'm joined with Nick from Comic Culture and Stu from Dr. Doom's Fan Club, and we're going to be going over the absolutely fantastic book, Daredevil Born Again by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. There's a plethora of different ways that you can enjoy this book, primarily looking at the newest format coming out here, which is going to be the smaller premiere edition from Marvel. In lieu of that, we also have our floppy editions here, which you can track down from your LCS. We have the trade paperback here, which actually has some really fantastic back matter here that we're going to see. But today, we're going to be looking at the gallery edition of Born Again. So I kind of wanted to start here with the landscape of comics as they were coming out here and Miller's return to Daredevil. So Frank Miller was just coming off of the heels of his first Daredevil run. He got the chance to kind of go to DC and do something that was a little bit unprecedented and do a creator-owned comic in Ronin. And he came back in 1986 on the heels of Denny O'Neil's run on Daredevil to kind of retell the story of a breakdown of this character and a reinvention of Daredevil to kind of like build him up from his core purpose, his core being. In 1986, that was kind of a magical year. We've seen Born Again hit stands later on that year. In fact, I think the following month we see The Dark Knight Returns again from the same creator and Frank Miller. We've seen Elektra Assassin come out, and later on the following year, we see Batman Year One, along with Watchmen hitting stands. It was kind of a crazy time for comics as they were in this maturation stage. So I wanted to talk to you guys here before we dive into the book here. What's your background with Daredevil Born Again specifically? And like, what's your opinion, I guess, basically on the landscape of comics and how they changed during that time?
Yeah, well, for me, I came to Born Again kind of fairly late in my comic book reading career, to be honest with you. And being 4 years old in '86, this was a moment in time I came to, appreciate later in life. But yeah, it's really incredible. Just the string of creativity and the run that Miller was on during this period. And going back and forth between Marvel and DC, and Ronin as well. But yeah, just kind of coming back after the run he had already had on Daredevil and being able to accomplish a work like this, with Mazzucchelli kind of being the caveat, because I think hadn't Denny O'Neil gone to DC at the time, so his kind of like partner in crime was over there, and they were creating some timeless Batman stories together. So um, it's just incredible that he was able to return to Marvel and create another Daredevil tale that if not matched his previous work, exceeded it in power and scope. So Frank's an eternal favorite of mine, an all timer, and what he did for the art form, bringing it along, helping it mature. We can't say enough about it. All the work him and Alan Moore really just spearheaded that movement in '86. And that moment in time is I'm forever grateful for, because I don't know if the genre would be as strong as it is today without it. So
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about Denny O'Neil too. On with him leaving the title of Daredevil and handing the reins back over to Frank Miller, he then goes to DC to become the editor of the Batman titles, which then he lures Frank Miller back to then jump into Year One. But Nick, tell me about your experience with this, man. What was your first time reading this, and I guess kind of what was your overall feelings about it?
Yeah, actually, I just started reading this one in preparation for this video. I've been a longtime Frank Miller fan, although I haven't been reading comics for super long. Actually, did a deep dive on Sin City, read pretty much all of that. I fell in love with Ronin pretty early on in my comic book career, so this was just a matter of time before I got to this one. And of course, Year One was thrown in there. And I think, this is a magical time where superheroes really become adults, right? It's not just for kids anymore. This is for adults now. And we really have a lot to, or we really owe everything to the creators of this time. They've given us everything that we love about our current day superheroes. And I think we're seeing that obviously on display with the Netflix Daredevil shows and with the Born Again Daredevil show. It's incredible how that long ago, like almost 40 years ago, these characters were changed in a seemingly permanent way, and we have so many great movies and TV shows now because of it. So yeah, really excited to get into this one some more.
Yeah, so true. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the gallery edition here. So let's take a look here at our opening pages. So beautiful edition here. I really love that we get the introduction here by Ralph Macchio here, the editor of the books at the time. Great view of the David Mazzucchelli artwork here. And we're jumping in with our first issue by the team, which is going to kick off with Apocalypse. This is an awesome viewpoint of the artwork, first and foremost. When we dive into this, like, I was kind of stunned by the way that this was all presented because this is so very uncomic booky at the time. There's a lot of grit and texture on these pages here as we're kind of delivered the catalyst for our story to take place, which is that Karen Page, for lack of a better term, has kind of fallen on hard times. She's moved out to the West Coast at the time here. She went out to become a movie star and maybe weren't the movies that she was anticipating getting into. Kind of gets hooked on drugs here, and she sells basically the one currency that she has in this world at this time, which is only the secret identity of Daredevil, for one last hit. So, guys, like you were all both talking about here, this is the maturation of comic books here. This is crazy. I don't even feel like in 2025 we get this type of story here with this kind of gravity and this kind of I don't know, I guess themes and maturation. Like, what were your thoughts like when you were reading this, knowing that this was a Marvel book in from the big two?
Yeah, I'll kick it off with saying as soon as I turn the first page, just the artwork alone with the rays of sunshine coming through the blinds and the grittiness, like you said about this opening page, that was really, really shocking. And to match that grittiness, match that tone, that eerie tone that is on display here, we get the fact that she's selling his name for one last hit. You couldn't have started this in a more mature way. And I just love the posturing. I love how desperate she looks. I love how sad and like relieved almost, like she's providing this information. She's relieved she's going to get that one last bump. And the guy is so scummy in that right middle box right there. Man, it
Oh
was
yeah.
quite a page turn. It definitely sets the stage for what we're about to get into with the rest of these issues.
Yeah, I love how the blinds here kind of like give this smirk that he has almost like a Joker-esque feel to it as it's reflecting on his face here.
Yeah, and Miller writes dialogue so well. It's always so believable in a street level type of sense, and I think that really comes through here. And Karen, man, the way Karen is portrayed throughout this run is just, you feel every crack and break on her face, dude. The way Mazzucchelli uh, drafts her up, and for all like of the mysterious supernatural things we had going on in the earlier Miller run when he was penciling it with Klaus with the hand and all of that stuff going on. This run feels so authentic and real, and there's nothing fake about it. It feels totally believable. And starting right here with this first page, I love. There's something about addiction that Miller really understands and has a knack for conveying.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I could have said that any better here. And the other crazy thing about Karen, this isn't even the worst that we see from her. So,
Right, right.
Yeah,
yeah,
dude.
it gets a little bit dicey as we move on here. But speaking of moving on here, we get our introduction to the kingpin of crime, Wilson Fisk here, as he's beginning to kind of establish himself as more of a person outside of the world of crime and more so trying to make himself, I guess, more legitimate. He's trying to look into business means that are going to be outside of the shady, even though he's definitely still Wilson Fisk at heart. And he's delivered this information where basically everything has come down the pipeline here. This identity of Matthew Murdock as Daredevil has moved on from person to person to person, made its way to Wilson Fisk finally, until we get basically the culmination of everything here. We're starting off with Matthew Murdock in bed, kind of the beginning of everything that's going to kick things off here. What was your guys' thoughts on, I guess, how this all plays out? Like, what was your thoughts on Wilson Fisk getting the identity? Did it feel like over the top, or did it feel natural to the storytelling for you guys?
It was incredible to me. Can we just go back to that shot of Kingpin? I just love that first introductory shot we got of him with Mazzucchelli's art. It's just so powerful. I love the blood red background. And he immediately he wants eyes on every hand that's touched this information. And and I love that line. In the meantime, I shall test the information. It's just such a great introduction. I love his stature versus everybody else when they're all seated on the yacht. It's such a fantastic introduction, man. It was again like this 1-2 punch of uh, Karen giving up the information and then it getting to Kingpin in this manner, and you see what immediately is going to happen. Is crazy. I loved it.
Yeah, and you call out the colors here too, which is primarily done by Christy Shield throughout the book here, and you can tell that they're definitely working within the old school CMYK color palette here, as you can see those deep magentas turning into reds on the palette here. Like that's yeah, definitely a great call out.
Yeah, and I love the narration in the top left. 6 weeks later, that it's kind of crazy to just kind of feel like it's interesting to think about what Karen's going through for those 6 weeks. You know what I
Mm,
mean? It's like she sold the last piece of information that she has to get what she wants. So that speaks to how desperate she's already become. But now 6 weeks goes by before that information reaches its destination. So like what kind of hell is she going through during those 6 weeks? And time will pass throughout this whole series. So my brain always went back to what she's experiencing wherever she is, who she's dealing with, what she has to do. And man, it's remarkable. Yeah, good call out on Kingpin. He looks like a dominating force with that size, stature, and color in the background.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things that Miller did, even in his initial run, is the Kingpin Wilson Fisk was a joke by all means within Marvel Universe when he was primarily known as a Spider-Man villain. Nowadays, when Frank Miller took over, he made him mean and menacing, and it was something completely different than what we'd seen previously from the character. This is definitely another great example of that.
absolutely.
So as we move over here, one of the other things I wanted to call out here, this is one of the beginnings of a repeating motif that we're going to see within this book, which is that the title page really shows the degradation of Matt Murdock. Right here, we can see totally relaxed, chilling in bed, not a care in the world here, just waiting for that alarm clock to go off here as Matt Murdock starts his day. Man, you called out the colors on the previous page here. I love how we had the warm color palette that was kind of like engulfing Wilson Fisk. And here everything is a cool palette here, besides the red, of course, of his bathrobe that he's wandering around with. But everything else here, you see the half tone in the background here of the blue as the snow is kind of like enveloping New York City.
Yeah, there's something about him just tying that bathrobe and I don't know, that little scene that I just love. There's so many moments like that with Mazzucchelli's artwork where it's just some little line or detail that I just find myself falling in love with.
Yeah. It's that visual storytelling, it breaks down each page, each panel, and great use of Zipatone, like you said, even on the bed with all the different shadows being cast and everything. We're going to see that throughout the whole run.
Yeah, and it's crazy to talk about too, but with Mazzucchelli's artwork here, some of the hallmarks of it are actually the everyday things. Everything feels lived in, it feels real. It almost like stems from like an architectural background as all of these things look like they're taking place in a real, in a real kitchen, in a real living room that exists. Like this looks like it should be photo reference. I kind of don't believe that it would be though. I think this is out of the imagination of Mazzucchelli, which is again even more stunning here. We're talking about superheroics, so it's crazy to I guess talk about the fact that the pots and pans hanging from the stovetop are amazing, but they kind of are.
Hmm. Yeah, little attention to detail definitely looks lived in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So we get our first introduction of some of the things that are coming down the pipeline for Matt here as he's delivered, the bad news basically that his funds have been seized by the IRS. Everything is completely frozen. I love the fact that we're talking about the fact that he runs his fingers over the embossment of the letters here to read the letters. He doesn't need braille. It's kind of just showing that, showcasing that superheroic power that he has.
Yeah. Expanding his power set even further in canon, right?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So we get the letters here from the law firm. We get the notice from the IRS. We're getting the phone calls here. None of this is good news from Matt. He's waking up to an extraordinarily bad day, and he doesn't even know that this is not even the worst of it to come. So we move over to Foggy with Lori O'Brien. Was Matt Murdock's previous girlfriend here. She's kind of made the decision to leave him as Matt Murdock was never really there for her. She wasn't feeling it. She kind of falls into the arms of Foggy here, and they kind of develop something that's going to be, I guess, ruminating down, throughout the storyline as they become closer and closer as she has now completely removed herself from Matt Murdock's life. But arguably, the hero of our story, the best part, in my personal opinion, here is this dude right here with Mr. Ben Urich. He plays such an important role in the mythos of Daredevil, and to see him really get to take the center stage through this is amazing. I love that, he kind of really gets to play like a main character in this, and his role is so pivotal, especially in the very ending of how we break everything down. What is your guys' opinion of the characters that were delivered in this story here? Like, was there any standout? Did anything like really like hit you hard? I mean, I feel like every character has their moment to shine, but which one stood out for you?
Man, poor old Ben, right? poor, poor old Ben. Frank really puts Ben through the ringer in both of his stories. But yeah, Ben for sure is like the standout for me. I mean, I do love the supporting cast, especially the big intimidating nurse that we'll get to. Shortly, but yeah, Ben definitely is the heart of the story, and I love how Frank leans on him again. In a kind of even bigger way this time around.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nick, what about you, man?
Yep. I agree. Yeah, Ben's obviously the standout here. I mean, we have Foggy and Gloria as well, so like those characters are interesting, and you're going to kind of love and hate them throughout this entire series. But Ben just plays that. Man, he plays that role so well, where you're just so sympathetic to him. I've called him before like the Jim Gordon of the Marvel universe because the guy is just beat up and spit on, and he's just trying to do the right thing all the time. But man, he's really put through the ringer here. Definitely the standout so far.
Dude, no kidding. All right. So as we progress through the storyline here, we can see Matt Murdock again having his bad day, puts on the tights, jumps out, starts to, do his business here as Daredevil as he's trying to figure out what the heck is going on with all of this. And we see the introduction of this character within our storyline here, Nick Manelis, who is the police officer who basically put into action all the things that are going to get Matt Murdock disbarred. And it's kind of cool that, we kind of see all of the rumination that's happening here as Wilson Fisk puts it like he's such a master manipulator as he puts it through, whereas they're saying basically, all right, we're going to say these things about Matt Murdock here. We're going to basically vet our information. If Daredevil shows up and he starts being the heavy on this dude, that gives us our go. That means that, the information we have, very likely to be true. And lo and behold, Matt Murdock falls right into the trap, goes to basically question him, trying to find out, hey, you're a good cop. Why did you go through these things? Why did you say these things about Matt Murdock that are absolutely fabricated? Wilson Fisk is watching it throughout the entire time frame and he can see, okay, now, the game is at foot. We know that, Daredevil is Matt
Yeah,
Murdock.
and I like how we the way they the suspense is kind of like already built up when we start this story. You know what I mean? Like we kind of see the last few straws that break the camel's back here with Matt, and he's immediate. Like I love the phone call with Ben when he says his chuckle sounds like dry ice cracking, and he just doesn't sound like himself. Like things are moving fast and he's losing it quick, and you see him here get ultra violent with this guy, who's been a straight cop for 20 years, and it's kind of selling him out. So I don't know. I love watching him become so quickly unnerved.
Oh yeah, it's like the beginning of the degradation of his psyche that we're gonna see like issue after issue after
Yeah.
issue. Yeah. Another thing, I'm a sucker for this stuff here, man. First of all, the rotary telephone. Oh
Right.
man, like
So good.
Yeah.
yes, that's so good. And then the click, click. I love that, man. That's so good. All right. So we continue to move on here. We see the progression of the storyline where Matt knows that, he knows that basically what's going on here is he hears the phone call of Nick basically saying, hey, I did this for you. You got to make sure my kid gets the treatments that he needs because his kid's terminally ill. And the reason we find out that he did this was to make sure that Kingpin basically fronted the cost of these medical treatments that he's going to need.
Yeah, totally plausible too. So, you think that you would hate this guy because he's selling out our hero, but at the end of the day, he's trying to do the best he can do. for his own family. So plausible plot there.
Yeah, and that's part of the best part of Frank Miller's writing in this is everything feels feasible. Everything feels like it could happen. In the world of superheroics, it's kind of silly, but man, this is a very grounded story. This is something that you could see happening within like, a season of The Sopranos if somebody were putting on red tights or something like that. It feels very real. And it harkens back to like his noir writing where he's kind of emulating things like Raymond Chandler stories and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love this page right here. I love Matt just coming unglued.
This is yeah, exactly. When I talk about the psyche of Matt Murdock here, he was losing it there. He's absolutely losing it here as he goes to the bar with no name, basically just beating the hell out of everyone, looking for basically a reason to smack people around here. He's just like trying to find out what's going on with Matt Murdock. Why is his name on the lips of all the criminals around town here, and why is his life falling apart?
Yeah. Kingpin's just eating it up.
Yeah, great shot of him down there. Yeah.
Every angle, every way that Wilson Fisk is drawn in this series here is just so menacing. Like the way that they make him so like loom so large here. I love that the camera is shot from down below, aiming up at him, and his eyes are darkened out. Man, it's like that's such a great artistic choice here. And with the artistic choices here, man, let's take a look at like some of the different things that Mazzucchelli is using here, man. Like the way that he's emulating these photos and making it very gritty and noir looking, making
Yes.
them
It's so
feel
good.
so different than like every other panel in play here, where he's like evoking the thought of a memory here, evoking the photograph, the black and white photograph look here. Man, like master visual storyteller, amongst the greatest,
So true.
basically.
There's a shot later in the book. I know we'll get to it, but it's a newspaper clipping of like Nuke's face, and it's just like the depth and texture he's able to provide, just like with these photos here, is just incredible. It really is.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And I wonder if those techniques will be relevant in like 50 years, with those Polaroid photos, the black and white retrospective looks, you know what I mean?
Right.
It kind of freeze frame a moment in history. I wonder what that will look like for future generations and their current day storytelling. If that same method is going to be used, or we have to reinvent something differently. It's going to be fun, but we know what that means immediately just by looking at it. So it's really thought provoking.
Man, that's an interesting thought too, because obviously we have the imperfection of a Polaroid, but we, as people that were born in the 80s, totally understand the mentality behind that. But yeah, you're right. Like in our current day, like it just doesn't feel the same as a person flipping out their iPhone and showing a reel of pictures to a person. That's not going to evoke the same feeling.
No,
Right.
can be a different type of noir.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So we finally get back to the story of Karen Page as, again, like Nick was saying here, just at the introduction, where it was 6 weeks later, where he was vetting Daredevil being Matt Murdock, the information he was given. Now we get back to her on the run, basically. Like I said, that was her last piece of currency. She's got nothing left, no money, no prospects, I guess, no means to have anything except for knowing that if there's one person in her life that can help her, regardless of any circumstances, regardless of anything, it's Matt Murdock. So she begins her basically escape and starts her journey back to the East Coast, back to New York to get the only help that she possibly knows that she can have, Matt Murdock.
Just infuriating Karen moment number two, right? She sells him out, then she comes back, finds her dude shot up, and she wants to call out for him for help, and yeah, she she drive me crazy.
Yeah, you're both sympathetic and not sympathetic to the Karen
Exactly.
character throughout this
Yeah,
entire series.
for sure.
Well, but I'm glad that you bring that up because that brings up one of the larger themes of the story, which is like this is almost essentially a retelling of the death and resurrection of Christ by way of Matt Murdock. If there was any character, if there was any person that was going to be sympathetic and empathetic towards your plights, regardless of what you've done, it's going to be Matt Murdock, especially within this story. So while she did him wrong, it only makes sense that the person that she brought as low as possible is also the person in which she can seek her own redemption in.
Great parallel, brother. Love that.
So we kind of get delivered our end cap of the issue here is Matt still totally not understanding what is going on with his life, no idea how things could possibly get worse. And of course it does get worse because as soon as he's walking up to his brownstone to reevaluate how he's going to approach things, the whole thing goes up in flames here. The entire brownstone is blown up right in front of his face here. Talk about a bold freaking move here. Everything else has been very, I don't want to say minor, but it's been picking apart his life. Now he's taken away the roof over his head, and arguably, probably the roof over a lot of people's heads, because this ain't just Matt Murdock. I don't think any attorney, doing pro bono work is going to be living in a place like this. But maybe that's, just my personal opinion.
Yeah, great shot there with that split. Yeah, perfect
So
shot.
so good.
So, yeah,
Reflection and everything.
again, yeah, great visual storytelling here as we get the explosion and we get the split, the crack of the page, and then we get to see in the reflection of his glasses, like the utter destruction of like the final piece of his life that he, could go back to, which was just, the home, the place he called home. But with every issue here, we're delivered the final end cap, right? The piece that kind of gives us the cliffhanger for our next issue. He realizes all of these things could have been circumstance. This could have just been a really bad day in the life of Matt Murdock. This kind of tells the story of the fact that none of this is coincidence. None of this is actually, mistaken. This was all the work of the Kingpin. I love this. It was a nice piece of work, Kingpin. You shouldn't have signed it. Man, like what a great line. What a great end cap for this story that really just puts it into play. Now this is fully without a shadow of a doubt Matt Murdock versus Wilson Fisk. Like this is so perfect.
So good. Holding the Daredevil costume too, like he gets no better.
It's very Death in the Family. That's what popped in my mind, like
Nice.
just seeing like
Yes.
Batman holding Robin, like that's shot, right? It's very, very fun. And I love that piece of debris that's covering up Matt in that first panel, the first vertical panel. Like there's so many cool things that he decided to do, putting that foreground element there to kind of break things up. And it's just really cool. You don't see that a lot. And I wouldn't have even thought of doing something like that. And it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part about everything, working out the way that it does is this is while it's the destruction of the place that, his home, but it's also the destruction of Daredevil itself, right? The suit that he's holding is in tatters. It's ripped, it's shredded. He can't be Daredevil at this time. This is very clearly the visual motif of the deconstruction of Daredevil. This is him being tore down. And what we're going to see throughout the rest of this is the building back up of Daredevil through incredibly difficult means.
Yeah. That's why they call it Apocalypse.
Exactly. So we're in purgatory now. We see the repeating motif here as we see Matt Murdock now definitely not in the comfort of his own room. He's basically looking like what I assume every New York apartment that costs probably $3,000 a month to rent looks like.
Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see barely covered in his, in his blanket here. We know it's winter outside. We got the space heater right here. This ain't the best place to be.
No, it's such a great shot.
Yeah, he's actually gripping those bars. He's uneasy. He's cold. He's fetal position. It's right next to the window.
I love like his hand on the blanket, just like the kind of like the desperation in that. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell like the discomfort there. Like he is definitely uneasy. He's out of the norm basically.
Yeah, it's a problem when Matt's got his shirt back on. Yep, when he's sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and this place ain't the nicest place to be here. We can see that there's knocking at the doors. There's people trying to collect, the basically the money to be staying there for the night. I love this shot, man. You talk about menacing Wilson Fisk. Whoever owns this page in real life, like, man, kudos to you for grabbing that sucker because I would do terrible, awful things to own this page and have this on my wall. This is gorgeous, man. The way that we break up basically the silhouette of Kingpin looking out over the city here and the juxtaposition of that over what we see with Matt Murdock in that tiny room, right? Again, completely uncomfortable, completely broken down at this point, and just the joy, the maniacal joy that he has knowing everything that he's put into place as basically everything is going as planned at this point here. And again, seeing the color palette that they're choosing on here for the simple things as the caption boxes here against the blue of the New York City here makes everything really pop in a beautiful way on this page.
Yeah, and if you went too dark with those colors for the background of the lettering there, you wouldn't be able to read it. But so they did a great job in just balancing that too. There's a lot of books out there now that don't quite get that. They have the black text, but they also have a dark background. It makes it a little bit harder to read, and they did a really good job there.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to all the colors and letters out there, man. It's definitely a piece of art when you do that in the right way. So we see Matt again breaking down his psyche as he's visualizing the thing that he wants to do. He's imagining what he's going to make happen, which is going to be like Fisk has broken down my life and I'm going to break down his body. Lo and behold, it's just a dream. It's nothing that's actually happening in real life. But again, we see him being just broken down more and more and more.
I love his what he says to himself. He's like, there will be a parade. Like he's completely delusional and starting to lose it. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. And we see it happening more so and more so now as he tries to reach out to the one person that he could maybe put a little bit of trust in here. And of course, it's Foggy that he ends up talking to. He knows exactly what's going on here. I'm on to you, Nelson. Hangs up the phone, and you can see he's going crazier and crazier and crazier. We see the stubble, coming up on his face here. We see those wide eyes as the knocking is coming at the door here. Now, lo and behold, it's just the person collecting rent. But man, he has no idea. This is a guy coming off of the heels of everything in his life basically being tore down. And this poor dude just looking to make a buck on this place. And now, granted, it's not the nicest place in the world, which means that he's probably not the nicest landlord. I don't know if the dude necessarily deserves to be choked out and left in the hallway.
No, definitely not.
But man, it just goes to show, like, again, he's going crazier and crazier. Man, let's talk about this panel here for a second because Mazzucchelli, within like almost every page of this book, has a beautiful shot of New York City, and I love the fact that this is like, it's not precise by any means. We see Fisk Tower is kind of like really drawn with clean, slick lines, and you can see that the color is just slightly different than everything else. But look at the gritty chunkiness of the lines that he has on here, almost looking like he used a chisel pen on some of these bricks here, just to kind of give it that real rough feel of the city.
Yeah, I love the juxtaposition. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it really makes that pop off of here.
Yeah, and Fisk Tower, I mean, it looks very modern, right? It looks futuristic. Everything else is run down. It's taller than everything else around it, so it has a spot in the sky that he can look down amongst all the peasants. So it really puts us in our place just by that showing us that one panel.
Yeah, exactly. So we see that Matt's on his way. He's putting his plan into action here. He's already again going crazy here. He's knocking people out on the subway here. A great action scene here too, which is again a kind of a silly thing to talk about. He's not even in the Daredevil costume here, but man, great visual storytelling as the gun is thrown here, the punch is thrown, but right behind him we still see the kick being thrown here. It's a great setup of everything that's happening here. Great camera work basically.
Yeah, it's a good action scene. Yeah, it's very very kinetic, and even though he's been kicked down, he's still trying to do the right thing, but maybe his intention isn't quite in the right space in
Yeah,
this moment.
yeah, exactly. And again, we just see the preparation of Wilson Fisk more and more as he's lifting those weights here, knowing Matt's on his way. How could he not be on his way? So we jump back to Karen Page here. She's still working her way back, trying to figure out how is she going to get back to Matt. She needs to figure out the best way that that's going to happen. And she meets up with some dicey people here, and we're going to find out what that means here coming down the pipeline. We see Matt again, the tower that we called out looming large. He's on his way. He can see it. It's right there in front of him here. And again, the color palette that's being used here, I love the way this is such a weird color choice, but I feel like it's such an effective color choice here, especially knowing how this was published and how it was meant for newsprint. I love that the color is just reflecting off of those glasses. You see the reflection right here, and that same color choice is used instead of black, but for the shadowing of right underneath his nose and on his chin line here, man. That really makes that pop in an interesting way.
Yeah, and I love this, like the Kingpin is expecting you, sir, and just like the silent walk into the office. It's such a great moment.
Yeah, and how menacing does that feel, knowing what's going to happen too? Mr. Fisk is expecting you, like Jesus. The starkness of the walk here, like the fact that we're so far back from it, man, such a great choice. And then we finally get the showdown. We see what he's been visualizing, what he's been dreaming about, puts it into action here, takes out the freaking Billy Club right out the bat. Like you could tell there's no holding back at this point here. Like he's there to take this dude out. And you can see lands a blow, misses. nails dude right in the face here. I don't know how that doesn't break his freaking nose, but it doesn't. And you can see Wilson is taking the beating here until basically he gets hold of him.
Yeah, I like how he kind of like breaks it looks like he breaks the billy club across his skull.
Yeah,
Like that's such a powerful moment, that crack there. Yeah. And then you think, oh, he's gonna at least daze him. And no, that's when kind of Wilson takes control of the fight. It's wild.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like a boxer wearing a person down, right? Like they take all the punches, they take all the blows until you're too tired, and then they just pummel you. And that's what's about to happen here is the pummeling. Grabs a hold of Matt, smacks him around, beats him, and it's such a great visual here, man. This is like cinematic, like in the way that this is portrayed, because we see the fist, and then you see like just everything fade to red, the blackout basically as he's knocked unconscious. We pick back up at the bottom of the freaking bay in a crashed taxi cab.
so
As
good.
yeah,
It's
this is
yeah,
so perfect
one of
here.
my
As
favorite
he didn't
pages right here. Yeah.
yeah, it's so beautiful. He doesn't kill Matt. He doesn't need to kill him because he needs to set it up in a way where Matt's going to die in an organic way so he can kind of keep clean. Because again, Wilson is trying to be legit. What we find out though is that Matt doesn't go down easy, just like his father, Battling Jack Murdock here. Wakes up at the very end of the issue here. The Kingpin shudders at the thought in pleasure.
Yeah, it's great coloring in that scene with the first shot of the taxi cab because
Yes.
it's like this really weird green. It's like a sea green, and it gets lighter. It gets darker as it goes down, and then you have the white or gray accents in the metal, in the cab itself with the yellow. It's a great color choice, right? All those colors just seem to go together. But I love that gradual fade to darker greens. In my edition here, which is just the Marvel trade that you showed before, that zip tone almost looks checkered pattern. So I'm interested to see what it looks like on your edition, if that's more of a checkered pattern, dotted zipatone. But yeah, that's just such a striking shot coming out of that knockout punch the page before.
It is.
Yeah. And we're all suckers for that zipatone here. I love the usage of it. It almost looks like it was laid entirely over the page here, and he actually cut away like the bubbles basically coming from his mouth and coming up towards the bay here. The water kind of rushing into the taxi cab itself here. Like really great choices here. Again, like I'm very anxious to get the artist edition of this to kind of
That's
see
so good.
more,
Yeah, it
yeah,
is.
more
It's
in
incredible.
line with what the approaches were on this. And we see again a glimmer of hope here at the end. We know that Matt Murdock was at least conscious at the bottom of the bay here, but we see again the close up of Wilson Fisk's eyes, which is going to be another repeating thing that happens here. There is no corpse. While Matt has been driven basically insane throughout the storyline, we start to see cracks in Wilson Fisk's mentality here too, as he's become obsessed with Matt. To know that nothing was found, to know that there was no corpse, no body, means that there's a possibility, even if 1% chance, there's a possibility that Matt is still out there.
What a difference that bottom panel looks compared to that shot we saw earlier, right? Now everything's a little darker. He's in black
He's a
silhouette,
little
color
smaller.
changed,
Yeah.
a little smaller. He's kind of pissed now. So it's quite a change from a few pages ago.
Yeah, and arguably, yeah, there's a little bit of worry in him now. Like if he did all of this stuff and that couldn't take care of Matt, that's kind of a frightening prospect. So we jump into the Christmas issue here as we see Santa Claus here, maybe looking into some nefarious purposes here. Again, we're kind of delivered Matt going crazier and crazier. I love this as we get our completely black paneling here, as we're kind of almost kind of told maybe not a retelling of his origin, but maybe a basically showing his power set, right? Kind of like it was that Jim Shooter error of,
Yeah.
you
Right.
got to basically reintroduce what the character's powers are. You got to reintroduce their origin story because every issue could be everyone's first issue, but they do it in a great way with the cinematic panel here. And I love, again, I didn't talk about this previously. This isn't the first time it comes up, but when I think of the long panel on the left hand side of a page here, I feel like that was really put into prominence with Frank Miller on his first run of Daredevil. When I think of Elektra being struck down by the sigh of Bullseye, it was big cinematic page
Yes.
or panels like this, and I love that carries over from a completely different artist, but still is true to Daredevil and kind of like the greater comic book creation of that time. I feel like things got way more cinematic at this time.
I was gonna say the dialogue here is starting to turn a little bit more into more modern day Frank, or what we're gonna see later too, where it's basically sections of a sentence. You know, sometimes they're repeated things. We're getting really small, broken up dialogue here too, which is something that he's going to really embrace in future work.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call.
Yeah, I love the lettering here on the right, all that. I think that's one thing Mazzucchelli does remarkably well in his artwork. Like you were saying earlier with the word rotary phony. Um, and also, yeah, I second what you're saying about the action sequences. I remember a bunch of times during those electro fights, it would be in that panel down the left side of the page, and then you would have like a bunch of scenes punctuated there on the right. So yeah, it's definitely cool to see it again.
Yeah. All right. So again, we get to pull out further and further as we see Matt sleeping. We then are delivered basically, a person's head in the background here as we're still delivering more and more about the origins of Matt Murdock. Here we get his childhood. We get him kissed on the forehead by someone with a cross necklace that's, kind of caressing, and he feels as they're pulling away. And we're finally delivered the title page. Whereas we saw Matt in his own bed, Matt in the rundown apartment. Now we see Matt completely curled up, sleeping on the streets, or at least trying to sleep on the streets amongst the homeless in an alleyway. Like, this is like the culmination of Matt being brought low, is like now he has absolutely nothing. He thought that he could regain a little bit of composure, a little bit who he was by taking on Wilson Fisk, and he couldn't even complete that. Now he's out of the bay, onto the streets, not even knowing basically what his next steps are going to be.
I love the way they like pull out with those scenes. We're in close, and then over the course of the pages, we pull out to see him sleeping there. It's great, so well done.
Yeah, again, it's not just, when we talk about the maturation of comics at this time, it's not just with the thematics. It's not just like the hyper violence or the theme, the drug use or the violence in here. It's really about the storytelling too. Like, I mean, this is really leveling up what you could do. It's not just panel after panel. It's really the cinematic storytelling and what you can really achieve on a page that's outside of the scope of that classic storytelling. So as we move on here, we still get to see a little bit of time here with Foggy as they're going about their business. They're kind of side characters throughout this story. It's almost as if like we get to spend time with them just as the readers to still twist the knife a little bit in Matt, even though Matt's not present and doesn't even know that it's truly happening here.
I was just gonna say this is like I think Miller yet again making the city a character here with this mugging scene and how nobody offers to help. They are all just kind of walking by, watching it happen. I think it's indicative of again New York in the '80s and the effect it had on Frank and his writing, especially in Daredevil.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of it evokes like, what we now know is Frank's true feelings towards the city at that time. I mean, in the 80s, while I didn't live there, everything I've read, heard, and have known about it is that it was very much Scorsese's New York that you're delivered in his movies, which is not the kindest place to be. So like this is very true. And we've heard stories like in interviews where Frank talks about being mugged, being punched, on a subway, things like that. So I think he had a love-hate relationship with the city itself, and it definitely shows within the pages of Daredevil.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So we jump back in here. We jump back in with Ben Urich here as he is still investigating. He's the journalistic investigator here, and we get the introduction of another character here, which is the nurse that's basically been assigned by Wilson Fisk. And if you're assigned by Wilson Fisk, you know that you're probably not the best person in the world. You can see that he's kind of grilling the police officer as he's trying to get to the bottom of, hey, why would you do this to Matt? Ben Urich at this time knows that Matt Murdock was Daredevil. He knows not only is he Daredevil, but he's just generally speaking a good man. So he starts questioning everything that's happening and he starts working out the details, figuring out what's going on. And we see the emergence of this this duo that is definitely going to get exciting in future issues here. I'll leave it at that.
Random Mazzucchelli love. I love Ben putting out the cigarette on his shoe. I just love the way that looks, man. It's just simple but so well done. So well done.
Yeah, again, it's small little details like that here, and again, we let that panel breathe too. Whereas every other panel here, we get the background of the room that they're in here. We get little details here. This is just the starkness that really makes this. It makes these images pop against the contrast of the fully detailed panel right next to it here. So, again, beautiful work here, just kind of letting things breathe and letting them live within their own panel. We jump back into Karen Page's adventure, which again, she is getting worse and worse. Like you see, she gets thinner and thinner almost by the panel at this point here. And we see her, man, we thought she was with some dicey characters before. Look at this dude, man. This guy
She
looks
out here robbing goblins, bro. What is she doing?
Straight up
no
witch. Yeah,
kidding,
what's
right?
going
This
on?
guy looks like freaking right out of Night of the Living Dead at this point here. So she smacks him around again, just trying to look for any like means, any mechanism to get back to Matt. Not in a great place here as she's continuing her journey. Speaking of continuing their journey here, Matt, man, again, rough. Obviously gets out of the alley here, trying to, get back into the swing of things, figure out what he's going to do next. Doesn't make it too far here, man. Slammed by a car. You could tell he just like he has no bearing whatsoever. First of all, we know he's blind and he has his hypersenses, but man, he can't seem to catch a break here at all. You could argue he probably didn't get a whole heck of a lot of sleep in that alleyway here. He's coming off of the heels of, almost dying. Who knows how close he actually got to that? But you can see keep moving. Like he's still a man driven, still a man focused on, basically getting back all the facets of his life that he lost.
Yeah, and what Stu was saying earlier about like the city being a character. Here we go again with the guys hitting him with the car. The next panel over, the driver or whoever says, "Ah, he looks bad," and the guy just
Yeah.
goes, "No, just keep driving. Who needs the grief?" It's
Yeah, who
like,
need
who needs the grief?
Ugh.
And it's I guess it's in canon right now, especially when Daredevil's in the city. He's in rush hour. It looks like it was raining or just got done raining a little while ago, or maybe it's the snow. Who knows? But like, his senses might be off. Plus, with his delirium and the lack of sleep and everything, yeah, he's just kind of wandering like a zombie through the city right now, just getting no help, especially from Santa Claus, which we're going to see soon.
Yeah, exactly. So we're introduced to Santa Claus here, mugging another Santa Claus out there, one of those Red Cross dudes out there with the bell looking for donations, right? And you can see Turk Barrett, he definitely has the Christmas spirit right now, man. Is they're looking to swindle any person possible here. It's so in character for Turk Barrett, man. I love and hate that he's such a despicable character, but he's such a good punching bag.
Oh, I didn't even realize he's a Daredevil regular. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He's I want to say he's a Frank Miller creation. I could be wrong on that, but he's just one of those characters that like again, yeah, it's reoccurring here. He's going to be showing up in the bar with no name all the time here. He's definitely a regular there. And man, this is the first time though that I feel like he gets the one up on Daredevil even though he doesn't necessarily know it.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
again, more and more, Matt beaten, brought low, stabbed by the like arguably the most jokey character. I think the only thing that worse that could happen to Matt right now is if Stiltman walked by and kicked him in the shin or something like that. But like because you don't get much worse than Turk Barrett. So we jump back here. We see again Matt been stabbed. He's bleeding all over the place. We see Karen Page. She's finally possibly found a way to get back to New York City here. Unsavory means by that. We know that Ben Urich here doesn't understand anything that's going on here, as he knows, again, Matt Murdock is a good person. Something is happening, something maniacal is happening here. It's like the culmination. I love that our main characters basically have all like started to question everything in their lives. There's no understanding at this point as we're kind of reaching more and more to the midpoint of the storyline here. Karen finally finds her unlikely suitor here as he makes some promises to get her back where she needs to be, albeit she needs to do things for him, and we'll let you pick up on some of the subtext of maybe what those things might be. Matt then, again, beautiful shot of the city here as he's trying to make his way back to, again, plotting, planning, figuring out what he needs to do. And we finally get, again, Wilson Fisk hires a person here. That's not going to be a great person. As Ben Urich is starting to get more and more information, he's starting to kind of, basically pull it out of this person about all of the things that have been happening, what's been happening with his son, how he needed to pay for it. And this behemoth of a freaking nurse, Colcox Nick here, takes Ben by the arm and breaks that sucker. Man, that's just so freaking brutal. She like towers over this meager man here and just bends him over and snaps that arm.
I've seen some commentary where like, who is this chick, right? Like, who is this nurse? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this has got to be Kingpin's sister or his cousin or something like that. You know what I mean? Just from it could just be Kingpin in a wig and a nurse's cap. That's really funny. But leading into this, the differences between what Foggy's going through with Gloria and what Matt's going through, stumbling through the streets and stuff. And meanwhile, Foggy and his girl are dressed up, and he's buying her expensive necklaces, and Karen's continue to turn tricks and get into bar brawls and narrowly escape. It's just like you really feel for Matt in these scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Ben's narration there, like the when he's after he gets his fingers broken. The worst thing is that I don't pass out. I get to see what she does to Nick Manolis or Manolis. I love it's Ben. He always Frank's voice for Ben is unique and awesome. I feel like he really nails that character.
Well, and we talked about the caption boxes and the coloring previously. Man, whenever we get kind of Ben's inner monologue here, I love that the typeface changes. We see more of a newsprint
Oh yeah.
style basically of the time. So it totally comes off as him being a Daily Bugle reporter with all of this narration here. It just comes off as something almost that he's writing within the article of his mind. Really, really great choice there.
Yeah, there's something in like it's such a brutal scene. Stu, to your point, like the worst thing is that I didn't pass out. I get to see what she does to Nick. It's those little eerie, those real grungy kind of moments that he finds a way to sneak in here to just make
Yeah,
you really feel like you're in the gutters, So damn, that's just such a good little spot to add there.
that's so true because it's like you don't see the violence right anywhere on the page, but like you still kind of feel every bit of it with just those two little narration boxes.
Yeah, just let your imagination run wild.
So Matt, stumbling and bumbling, finds his way to basically the only reprieve he has, the only place in the world that he knows still might be there for him, which was his dad's gym. Like right to go there to box. He smells all of the memories basically of his father boxing there, of himself training, of all the fighters that have been there. As we turn the page here, we see, man, he can't even beat the punching bag at this point, man. Like he is just, yeah, I mean, he's at the lowest point now. There's no coming back from this. We see Karen again, same thing. We see the needle here kind of showing us without telling us exactly what's going on. Matt completely broken down. Basically, this is, by all means here, this is the death of Matt Murdock here. But with the death comes hope, comes resurrection here in the eyes of who we will find out later on here, but a mysterious nun figure here with a cross necklace here that we've seen juxtaposed in the past of Matt as he had that memory.
Yeah, what a shot on that previous
That's
page, man.
absolutely incredible.
Obviously very provoking and representative, and so yeah, it's so well done.
And again, this is another great visual storytelling thing that Mazzucchelli is doing here that we're going to see repeated moving forward here. The triangle, right? We see the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We see the religious symbolism that's brought forth in this page here. We're going to see a heck of a lot more as the series progresses as well. We turn the page here. Again, we see the obsession in Wilson Fisk here. There is no corpse. We see him, again, basically back to the stage that he was at previously, prepping, preparing, just like basically obsessing now as he knows Matt Murdock was not found. He's still out there somewhere. And I love this. This is like the line amongst lines here. Man, but he is more than this. Now he is much more than this. He always was, and I have shown him that a man without hope is a man without fear. Man, great setup here for the continuation of the story here, as we know that there's no further down that Matt can go. There can only be the eventual rise. All right, so we pick back up here with Daredevil here with the flagship of the storyline that we're at here, issue number 230, Born Again, as we see kind of, what's happened here with Ben here. Not looking too great here, definitely in some pain, but we see the shadow of the horned figure behind him.
Yeah, great corner box too. Great corner box. They've all been thematic throughout this run, so it's really cool to pay attention to those.
I've always been a sucker for the corner box. I think that's something they should bring back, man.
Great
Like,
call. That's cool, Nick. I didn't even notice the themes. I'm gonna have to go back and check all those corner.
Yeah, the previous one was him kind of like black silhouetted, stumbling through the streets, and the prior issue was him like full strength, zipping through the city and stuff. So we're going to see the degradation and rebirth in that corner box as well.
man, and talk about again, we're working at the Jim Shooter era. What a great way to recap everything that's happened here within one single page, within a handful of panels here. Man, you think Matt's dead. For all I mean, he may as well be dead at this point here. We see again him holding the suit as his brownstone is destroyed. We see Wilson Fisk beating him mercilessly, basically knocking him unconscious as he's going to throw him into the bay. Turk Barrett stabbing him. All of these things happening as we see the heartbeat monitor as it comes back here at the final second. He's alive. Praise God, he's alive. As we see him being helped here within the church here by that nun figure who basically cradled him and found him within the confines of the gym. Again, we get the cross here, we get the starkness of the white, and we get the triangle motif here as well, man. That's again, man, seeing that over and over here, it just hits so hard knowing, what they're trying to evoke and the themes here that are so prevalent now within like the mythos of Daredevil. This is the reason that we think of those things when we think of Daredevil. It's because of this book right here.
Yeah, and I love these last two. Like, the shot with is it Sister Maggie? Is that her name?
Yeah, that's right.
Originally finding him, and then this shot, and all the Christ-like parallels, and how they really kind of turn the volume up on the religious aspect of it, heading into kind of the rebirth part of the arc.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely get the Jesus and Mary motif here in case you didn't see it in the previous pages. It's on full display. It's on
Exactly.
full display here. Yeah, make sure you got it now. I didn't notice this until you just pointed it out, that the white cross in the center of that page on the right, his bed completing that middle vertical downward, it's like so freaking perfect. Yeah. So,
Exactly. Like you could say that it's heavy-handed, but man, it's done so
yeah.
masterfully that like I mean, I'm not going to argue it. It
Yeah.
just works. It
And
works
that
so well.
reviving heartbeat in the bottom is some weird wide complex thing there. So that's not great. We got to do some more work, guys. We got to figure out what's going on.
I wonder. See, this is the type of thing. Do you guys think this was Mazzucchelli's choice to frame the kind of theme of this book through these type of overhead shots on the bed? Do you think that was an artistic choice, or do you think that was in Miller's script?
Ooh, that's a good call. I know that in the back matter of this book here, we do get a single issue script, but I don't think that if my memory is correct here, I don't believe that it actually calls out how they're going to be laying out the panels. I think that when Frank Miller took over the book, one of the things that he I don't want to say demanded, but definitely requested was that David Mazzucchelli stay on the book because he was the artist at the time that Denny O'Neil was writing it. So I think that for Frank Miller to ask that, he probably had a lot of faith in the artist himself to be able to deliver the kind of, images that we're seeing here. I think there was a lot of trust between them.
Yeah, in the back of my edition, it says layouts were courtesy by Dave. Um, so some of the layouts were there, and he actually had the dialogue mapped out and everything too. This particular page isn't featured in the back matter of the issue that I have, but it looks like at least some of the rough layouts were already in there. I do have some scripts as well in here too. So as we're talking, maybe I can flip through those and see if I can find this page to see if there's anything remarkable in there.
So we're still moving on here. We see the progression of Karen's trip here as she's at least, at this point, hey, she's en route, right? We know that she's on her way somewhere, hopefully New York City here, as she's seeking her redemption. We see Wilson Fisk. I love these scenes, man, because again, he's been played as such a joke before Frank Miller's time here. To see him taking out dudes left and right, like, and definitely trained individuals here is so awesome. We see the nunchuck here spinning in the air. Yeah, I would argue if someone had a bow staff here, maybe that dude could have taken Wilson Fisk out. But nunchucks, they're a joke. Come on, we all know
Yeah, it's a little hard to maneuver.
No, that's false statement. Completely false
it.
statement. Nunchucks are awesome.
Yeah, I mean they are awesome, but bow staffs are better.
We know which turtle Stu likes the best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, are we being too telling? Man, so we talked about the outcome of that fight here and what Ben Urich had to basically witness, and now we see exactly what happened to Nick right here. Broken knees, blood splatter everywhere. I don't know how you get these kind of wounds here without being punctured by something, whether it be a bullet, whether it be a knife. Man, he's basically, yeah, he's not walking away from this. That's pretty nasty stuff right there.
Yeah, great shot. That downward shot with Ben just kind of kneeled down in disbelief while he's being helped out by the caregivers as well. Yeah, that's another just masterful camera angle.
You can see a couple compound fractures. She went to town on old boy.
Oh yeah,
It's rough. Some of those top down shots, like we're gonna see here in a little bit, are so effective at framing the scene, and like Nick said, just really making you feel everything.
Yeah, and again, it's just making everything feel so cinematic here. Nothing is static. Everything is always moving, whether it be the characters or the camera itself.
yeah, it's true. They're always in mid motion. Yeah, that's really important.
Great artistic choice here, man. I feel like this is, again, we see different changes within Mazzucchelli's style, basically. As we've seen the traditional superheroics, but you can see experimentation here with all the line work, all the rendering, the close up, the extreme close up of the eyes here. We can see the grit and the texture. And again, similar to what I was talking about with the landscape of New York, we can see almost like the chisel pen effect that's happening right here as the ink was being laid down.
And that single white, glare on that what Wilson's right eye or whatever it is laying down there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that single white spot. Yeah, great.
Yeah, exactly. So we see Wilson Fisk here. He's laid to waste all these people as he's preparing locate Nuke Wesley. Nuke, oh man, Nuke is coming down the pipeline here. I love that we're kind of like laying the seeds for what this is going to be, because Matt hasn't even like gotten his redemption yet. In fact, he's still reeling, he's still healing from all of the things that Wilson Fisk has done. And Wilson Fisk, like, he is still basically calling in every single big gun that he possibly can here to make sure that he finishes what he started.
Yeah, he's going scorched earth now. Like, I don't think he's not gonna. It's no more of a delicate undoing of Matt's life. Now he's just gonna raise it all to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Scorched Earth. I mean, it's perfect for the character title there too, man. So great call.
And I bet Mazzucchelli was so psyched to finally be able to use that weird pattern zipatone for that chair down below in that middle panel. He's like, finally, I get to use this weird textured tone that I picked up randomly at some shop for this fabric for the chair. So that was
No
really cool.
kidding. Yeah, he's been sitting on that page for years, and he's just like,
Yeah,
finally, get
it's
this
got a
off
whole
of my
sheet
plate.
going. Yep.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like the chair from Blue's Clues or something.
It does. Yeah.
Who would have thought Blue's Clues inspired by Frank Miller?
First appearance right here.
Man, we get Matt. He's healing up here. You can see, I mean, just visually right here, you can see a more serene look at him as he's healing up here, as the sun is hitting his face. We see that his powers are slowly coming back here. He can hear the city around him, the birds, the cars, just basically like the harmony of the city as everything is happening. And we see him finally awaken. Definitely not healed all the way, but alive. And alive is a heck of a lot better than you could have hoped, considering what he's actually had to deal with. Man, and then we see Maggie here, the character, Sister Maggie, as she puts him right back into bed, as she knows that he ain't quite ready. He's not fully baked yet. He's not ready to go out there and be Daredevil quite yet.
Yeah, and that healing hand that's been helping him this entire time, the first words out of her mouth is, "You idiot. My name is Maggie and you're staying here."
You
So
know,
that's really great.
sometimes people need tough love in their life, right? I mean, sometimes
Yeah,
you need to be
exactly.
called an idiot. It needs to be put on
Hmm.
Front Street.
That's right.
We see Karen's journey continuing here, as we see again visual storytelling, fantastic stuff here. We don't need to be told what's happening here, as we see, basically the menace of this character as his gun is being laid out here. We see the pills and the booze and everything that's happening, and we see her sneakily trying to find some way back and try to, get in touch with Matt, get in touch with Foggy, have some kind of plan for when she gets back to New York.
Yeah, I like Foggy here. He's like, yeah, well, oh sure, Karen, if it's important. He's like, oh geez, that's a really rough part of town, but yeah, sure, I'll meet you down there. I like, poor apprehensive Foggy, not knowing what he's walking into.
And the difference in passage of time, because at the very last panel where he says, just like old times, geez, it wasn't so long ago. But it's like, you don't know what she's been going through. Like, she's been going through absolute hell.
Yeah.
So a day would feel like a month for you, and he's living it up, man. He's in a posh apartment. He's dressed well. He's got, all the amenities. He's got a new girl. He's treating her well and everything. Meanwhile, she's sneaking around trying to like survive hour by hour. So like for her, meeting later tonight is an eternity, so that's a really cool like perspective there.
Yeah, exactly. Good call on that. And again, like Foggy Nelson has always been the heartbeat, the compass of all of the Daredevil stories here. So to see him so willingly, just pick up, right where they left off here and agree to meet with her, it's just so telling for the character. He's a necessary person within the mythos of Daredevil. Man, we talk about artwork here.
This page is just from an artwork and a storytelling perspective, just one of my favorites, I think. And also with Ben, you see Ben kind of, we saw him in that earlier arc, go to that movie theater and watch Elektra commit cold-blooded murder next to him, and he didn't get shook out of the story. He stayed on top, and I think a big part of that was having Daredevil kind of by his side. So seeing him now, get his fingers broken and see that other guy get tuned up, he's scared away from it, and Daredevil's nowhere to be found. He doesn't have his usual form of support in Matt Murdock, I think, who really helped guide him through previous situations. And I love this with Jonah getting pissed at him that he begged him on the story and now he wants off. And then like the janitor outside the office, what does he say? That's a good boy, Yurik. You stay a good boy.
Yeah, remember you got 5 more fingers.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
It's just from top to bottom, one of my favorite pages in the run.
Yeah, I mean that's rough here, and arguably the only rougher thing here, man. Like, okay, when you think of J. Jonah Jameson, you think, get me pictures of Spider-Man. Oh, that web slinging menace, man. He takes Ben Urich to town here,
Yeah.
basically said, like, you're a journalist. Like, who do you think you are? Of course, there's risks. Of course, there's challenges. Get back out there, write your story. Like, man, like he has no sympathy, no remorse for anything that's actually happening here. The only care that he has is for the freaking bugle. It's wild, man.
I really want to see the artisan edition of that page because I want to see how much that page weighs with all the whiteout that could possibly exist while trying to fix all these blind shadows. You know what I mean? You could just imagine what the original looks
It's
like. Oh,
incredible, man. It's like the very first page we got with all the way he does blinds and light coming in through shadow. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Great. All of the artistic things that you're seeing within all of the pages here, man. Again, absolutely stunning. So we're gonna continue our story here. We see Matt still going through it. We see again the menace that was kind of like alluded to previously. We see it coming into play as basically his Karen Page's suitor finds out that she's been sneaking around a little bit, slaps her around. We see the threat of the knife here. Man, we see Ben Urich as he is kind of dealing with everything that's been happening here, and we get basically the conversation that becomes more and more a threat as we see the progression of this panel. As we see
So good.
Nick roughed up here, we see that he survived though. Everything is for all intents and purposes okay, but Nick is continuing to have these conversations with Ben Urich, the journalist here, who's definitely going to be writing a story. And we see the nurse character come back, which basically calls up that she wasn't done with him to begin with, but now the threat that she delivered previously, now she has to make good on it and she has to end this. And she makes, not only did she make Ben watch previously, but now she's finishing the job and she makes him listen. And man, we talk about the page here. First of all, we see the phone is right there in the foreground, and we see the background is just the hand
So
and
good.
Nick here being strangled, the spit coming out of his mouth. And we see, it's kind of similar to Jaws. The reason that the movie Jaws was so effective is that we don't see the shark in almost all of it, and we don't necessarily see what's happening. All we can really see is the after effect and the reaction of Ben as he's listening to all of this happen and the threat of what could happen to him if he continues down the path that he's on. This is insane. This is so freaking awesome the way that they're able to portray this. And again, it just goes to show the absolutely fantastic writing and drawing here on this page. Like it's just storytelling perfection here.
Yeah, poor Ben, dude. Always get Kingpin is always making sure he gets the message in the worst way, and this is just another one of those amazing. And I love like the two guys in the newspaper bullpen arguing behind him, and the one guy being like, "Why are we putting our top crime reporter on a puff piece and he can't even get it written?" And yeah, just him completely zoning out during the course of this phone call is incredible.
Exactly. Like we as a reader get to see this, but for all intents and purposes, this is white noise as he's just has this look of fear and like just everything.
And the color change from Ben on the left versus on the right, it just he's regular, and then he gets a little bit more pinkish, and then he gets beet red with those yellow eyes once he realizes the deed is done. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
menacing.
and then the pleasantries of our nurse. I thank you for listening, Mr. Urich. Oh my God, that's like so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man. So again, we get the religious motifs here. We get the cross necklace now, all on the neck of Matt here as he starts to feel it on his own chest as he's still healing up here, still having to rest. The fever that he has here still hasn't broken, but of course, with the nun character, specifically Sister Maggie here, she has faith it will break.
I love like how he intercuts these scenes here, like with the pacing, how we go to Kingpin to Foggy to Ben. You know what I mean? It, it's not too jarring, and it's just like a nice little change in pace for me, and I really appreciated that through it. It keeps the suspense high, and I love Foggy here. Oh, you look great. You look good, Karen. Looking good. Everything's
Yeah,
good.
he's so like, what is that look on his face on the left? It's kind of like that, yeah, you're doing all right, kind of a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's arguably a little forced, right?
Right.
He knows he needs to keep up the
Exactly.
pleasantries, right? Yeah. Man, but that's the great thing about Daredevil, and I think that it's arguably the most effective of most big 2 books is that the title may be Daredevil, but it's really about all of it's the cast of characters, right? Even Spider-Man struggles with this sometime, but for Daredevil, it is truly about the cast of characters that you have. Matt plays a part in that, the biggest role, but man, it wouldn't be the same without people like Foggy, Karen at the time here, Wilson Fisk, like all of these people have such a pivotal role here.
That's why it's so important to build a great ancillary cast around your main, so you don't have to rely on them completely. In all your story arcs, you can have arcs with other characters, and they can play a role into the overall theme of the book. But yeah, Daredevil just has a great cast of characters around him, which makes him so successful.
That's so true. Can you imagine like these stories without Ben Urich in them? I mean, it wouldn't be the same thing at all.
Yeah, it's impossible, and that's one of the things is that, eventually, knowing the nature of these comics, they've been coming out since the '60s. We're gonna tell every single story for every single one of our main characters here, but when you have rich, engrossing characters here, like all of them, we get to tell those stories through their eyes, and it makes it gives it longevity.
Yeah, you can lean on others for a while. Yep.
Hold on, do we have another Zipatone sighting? Go back one page on the bottom with Foggy's jacket in the diner. Is that a Zipatone sighting
Oh,
there?
finally, I get to use that piece I've been hanging on to for 30 years.
Yep, exactly. We see a peek over the line just a little bit here, as that cut must have been just a hair imperfect here, but man, yeah, good call out.
Nice, thanks. I'm glad I caught one.
There you go.
Oh, hey, here it is again here too, man. Same, look at that. Same page here. You didn't run out, luckily, because that coat, that's an important coat here, man. We got to keep seeing that over and over.
Yep, yep, got to use it up.
Yep. All right. We see Matt continuing to have his fever here, continuing to try to go through the trials and tribulations of his spiritual resurrection here. And man, we see finally the breaking down, right? They're having their conversation between Foggy and Karen as Karen's doing her best maybe to try to spell out how harrowing a situation she's been through, and Foggy, while he's there for support, just can't understand. He has no bearing of the situation that she's been through, but all in all, like he's going to be there for her. Again, he's the heart. He's the moral compass of our storyline throughout the mythos of Daredevil. So to see them embrace and to see again some semblance of her redemption here, at least the beginning of it, it's a beautiful scene here. Odd choice as we see kind of the silhouettes of characters.
I kind of like it, like the two of them embracing together and all these strangers kind of being around them. They kind of have each other in the midst of all this going. I don't know. That's kind of what I took it as. I kind of liked it like that. But
Well, and to me, I read it like it's actually more than just a moment. I feel like they're embracing, they're hugging it out, and I feel like it could have been 5-10 minutes of a hug, and like the world is revolving around them, and ghostly figures are flashing about around them, and going about their day, but they're in that single moment where they're just embracing and they're just crying it out. That's how I interpret that scene. I agree. I love that shot.
Yeah, exactly. I almost look at it the same way that, we had the piece where Matt was starting to regain his senses and we heard the cacophony of the city. It almost feels like, again, yeah, like you guys said, this is like time stops as they were having that moment here, and this is, again, yeah, I think you said it perfectly, revolving around them.
Yeah, if this was a film, all those background characters would be flashing in and out, and you'd hear like a muffled city noise and stuff, and they would just stay in the center. If this was a film, that's what you would see there.
Yeah, exactly. We meet back up with Matt and Sister Maggie here, and man, if it wasn't completely obvious previously, man, they spell it
Yeah.
right out for you,
Right.
guys.
Let me get my ruler out. I'll show you. Yeah.
Religion. Yeah. But, Sister Maggie here, she is even being broken down more so and more so as Matt is struggling to kind of break this fever and to kind of finally fully recover as he, for all intents and purposes, spends his 3 days throughout the resurrection process. And man, we continue to go through this. Ben Urick's able to take off his cast. He has a better understanding of what's all happening here. Man, we start to see a little bit of what's going to be happening coming down the pipeline here as we kind of give a little bit of the tea leaves of Melvin Potter, the costume maker here, the person that made the Daredevil costume, as he's being hired to make a costume of your old boy Daredevil here. We don't necessarily know the reason behind it here, but we know that it can't be for any good purposes because it ain't Matt that's looking for this costume.
Yeah, I love any story that brings us back to the costume designers. We saw that like in the what was it, The Incredibles or whatever. We had the costume designers. I'm kind of a sucker for any of that stuff. And so to track this dude down and to threaten him the way that they did, it's kind of fun, even though that he kind of screws our hero over. But I love that character in pretty much any kind of story.
Yeah, Invincible has that as well. Like I love those moments when he's kind of
Oh, right, right, right.
trying to decide what his look's going to be. But I completely agree with you. Yeah, Incredibles forever, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we get delivered here the final scene of our issue where Matt, now sitting up here, kind of has his bearings, he has his composure. He's starting to pick up on a couple things here. He's starting to understand, the rhythm of Maggie's heartbeat. He's starting to remember certain things here. He remembers the scent. He asks Maggie, "Are you my mother?" "Of course not, child. A heartbeat can tell you a lot. Hers just jumped. She's lying." Man, as we start unraveling more about the origin of Matt himself, as we know that he was raised by a single father, battling Jack Murdock here. Now we know who birthed him, who his mother is, and where she's been in his life all this time. Saved, man. What a great way to tear this character down and bring him back, as we're kind of delivered. Again, we can see right there on the cover of issue 231 here, we know that a Daredevil costume has been made. We know that ain't Maddie in here because Maddie's getting slapped around by a freaking baton right here. So we're going to find out just how he comes back here and what he's going to do to kind of regain composure in his life. All right, so we dive back in here with Matt going back again to the place where he almost essentially had died, right? He goes back to Fogwell's gym. He's got no other place to go. But in this moment here, we see that it's not the same way, that the punching bag ain't going to do him in this time here. He's putting in work. He's getting back to the place where he needs to be to take back the mantle of Daredevil. As we see Wilson still putting his plan into place. But more importantly, we see Matt doing work, taking things out, and knocking that sucker off the chain because he's a man determined now. He's a man saved. Man, again, the title pages here are just pieces of artwork, man. Like these things, to take a word from Indiana Jones, man, they belong in a freaking museum.
Yeah, I love this back and forth between Wesley and Kingpin about how to deal with Mr. Switzer. Mr. Switzer has a weekend in Colorado planned. He skis, and Kingpin's like compound fracture, both legs. It's like,
Both legs.
Yeah, both legs. Come
so
on.
ruthless, man. I love it. It's such a great back and
Yeah.
forth.
Well, and it shows like the thought that he had behind it too. Like he considered it. Do I do one leg? Nah, both legs.
Yeah, and to even like pose the location, like, oh, by the way, he skis. You know what I mean? Like that shows the ruthlessness of the dude as well. You know what I mean? Like Wesley, he's just like, by the way, he skis. Ah, compound fracture both legs. Like, oh God. What a duo.
Wesley is nothing if not, effective, right? He doesn't miss any
Hmm.
details.
No, for sure.
So Ben's back at it, man. Cast off here, still trying to figure out here. At his core, at his being, he's a journalist, man. Nothing's gonna stop him from, from completing his story. And we learned that really from Frank Miller's, original storyline. Stu, you were mentioning it here. He was in the movie theater as a sigh was put through the back of another person here. Didn't stop him then. A couple broken fingers and a couple dead cops ain't gonna stop him now here. So he's continuing the Kingpin of Crime, a 6-part series by Ben Urich. So we start to see kind of, the tables are turning now, man. Everything is flipping on Wilson. The Kingpin of Crime now, it's out there on Front Street as he is, he's tried to go legit. Right now, going legit with something like that that's happening here. And again, Matt's on the ups now. He's seeing the newspaper here, running his fingers across it. He knows things aren't going well for him, and he's about to kind of put his plan in place now.
Yeah. And I like that moment of like rebirth Ben kind of had at I think the end of the last issue when he's on that park bench in the cold, took the cast off and said the name Matt Murdock, like he kind of decided to turn things around and make a step in the right direction. I thought that was dope.
Yeah, again, like yeah, he's always he's an arbiter of the truth, man. Like, and he knows that Matt Murdock is a good person, man. He's not going to let anyone stand in the way of that story again being told in the means that it needs to be told.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we know that nurse character, man. She's trying to get paid for the job that she did here, which was no easy task, sneaking into the freaking hospital and killing a dude. She's ticked off here. She knows what's coming down the pipeline, dude.
The
Talk about
fish eye. Oh my
storytelling,
God. It's
dude.
so good. Yeah.
That's some MC Escher type of stuff right there, man. As you get the distortion of the lens there as she looks through here, man. Okay, you talked about Foggy's jacket. Let's look at that dress here, man. I wonder how many pages of unique patterns Mazzucchelli was utilizing at this time, man, because this is insane. That's
Love
absolutely
it, man. That's something
crazy.
you just don't see that anymore. And so whenever you see it in an older book, it just pops out, dude. And that was exactly the point of it. It was meant to make your life a little easier. And like, man, you're right. How many stacks and stacks of tone did these guys have? It's incredible.
Yeah. And I love the way his line work looks on it too. It just does so much. It just pops.
Yeah. I'm also a sucker for diner scenes, so we get that great outside shot, and then we get that interior shot. I just love me a diner, and whenever there's
Yeah.
a diner
Same.
in it, I love it, and they just nail it right here.
Yeah, and it's funny too is we're kind of delivered. Ben's heavy, right? His security, the dude that's supposed to be watching out for him. He heads back home here. He's thinking things are a okay. The story's published. Everything's good to go. Not so much here. Gets smacked around here by the nurse. The dude that's supposed to be there to protect him takes all of 2 seconds before the dude's cold cocked, knocked out here. No gun in sight. And man, we hear the gurgling, right? Like how menacing is that as we see that coming from the other page or the other room here, and we don't even know what's happening, but we know his wife must be there somewhere.
Brutal, man.
It's
Dude,
terrifying. This scene is terrifying.
it is. Like, I mean, there's a lot of crazy things that happen in comic books, specifically superhero comic books. This is nuts. This is absolutely, again, terrifying, especially as an adult reader. Like, man, this is insane. And like, again, we talked about Ben Urich. He's a meager dude, man. He ain't a big dude. This is going to be a difficult proposition here to save his wife, and who knows how long she's been there. Who knows how long she has too. Man, the nurse again still doing business out there, but lo and behold, man, we see the blue puffy jacket that's become almost the uniform of Daredevil throughout this entire
Yeah,
series, and the
for
glove
real.
Chud smacks her, like, just basically knocks her out. Basically, man, Ben finally is able to reach out to the razor. Dude, shout out to the straight razor here, man. Like, Ben's putting in work here. I'm still out here using a Gillette, but that's serious
Yeah, another
business.
lost tool of time, right? We're never going to be able to use that to save our loved ones in moments of need, right? Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
a lost tool.
Yeah. What am I gonna do with this Mach 4? This Mach 4 won't cut the rope.
It's got a battery, and that sucker vibrates though.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
My nose hair trimmer won't do the trick. But no, I love those bottom two panels. Just him trying to support the weight of Doris and frantically reaching for that razor. I just love what they choose to show us. It just makes the anxiety and the drama of the moment all that much more heightened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, and we knew that she was menacing too, but thinking about the logistics of like having to do this to tie this noose and put her up there, like man, like she's no slouch, right? She must be hitting the weights because like
Oh
to be
yeah, and
able to
she
do
took
that.
out that big Swede dude too. That was Yurick's protection with no issue. It seemed like.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no problem whatsoever here. But Matt finally is there to be the hero that he is to save the day, man. Cracks her across the chin with that freaking boot heel. That ain't gonna feel great. Ben is able to save his wife here. Man, again, we've seen this previously as Ben had to listen to the acts of what was happening to Nick. And man, he doesn't know, just like he didn't know what was going on in here, he doesn't now know what's going on with the nurse character out there, but he's got that razor in hand. We see the color palette totally change here as we got the great foreground, middle ground, and background here with the
Yeah.
colors. And man, you can see the menace in his eyes again.
Yep. That look of
Yeah.
horror.
Yep.
Yep. We turn back. Matt's nowhere to be found here, but look at this, man. We got the nurse out cold, handcuffed. Man, his security is still down there. Ben gets the phone call from Melvin talking about the fact that there's a Daredevil costume out there. It ain't Matt. Something's going down.
Yeah. And that cool blue kind of like de-escalating the situation, because the previous panel he was like red or magenta. Now he's got that cool blue. I interpret that as like some kind of relaxation or cooling down of the situation. I love that. As a reader, you're heightened, and then the next page you're cooled down. You're like, oh, this is perfect. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, thank
Hmm.
God.
Yeah, always little like no matter how dark this book gets sometimes, always little bits of light, right? Always little bits of like and this is one of those moments where, obviously Ben's just, almost lost Doris and been through a heroin experience, but Matt's alive. So
Yeah.
there is a silver lining.
Well, and it goes to show again, it's a great team of creators on this book here. Whether it's again Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, but the coloring by Christy Shield is amazing here. And when we think about Frank Miller, primarily, at least in my mind, I think of Lynn Varley. But man, like there's been a lot of really great collaborators that he's had over the years. And again, Christy Shield, I feel like did fantastic work on this book.
Yeah, I feel like back then they did a better job at matching mood, right? In escalation and de-escalation. Like that was their main job. Like nowadays, coloring is so more complex. I think it's more of a visual. I don't know. It does its part with visual storytelling, but I think back in the day, in these kind of comics here, coloring was just used differently. It really complemented the story more, and it was less about just making the page look cool. It complements the story, but I think it just feels different in these kinds of books.
I was just gonna say that's one thing Mazzucchelli's art I think has really it's aged well in that sense with the coloring, and I think a lot of the great art of the the 70s and 80s, a lot of times the colors don't really carry over into they just really don't last, um aesthetically, in a pleasing way. So it's nice to see all these years later, us have all these moments where we're appreciating the coloring job by Shield.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it calls into play like the restrictive nature of the coloring of the day too, because of the whole printing process. Well, that restriction also leads way to creativity. How do you make that work for you? How do you make it work for, to convey the story that you're telling? They do it masterfully here. We see Matt again. We've seen him basically in the gutter. We've seen him at the bottom of a bay. Now we see him at the top of a rooftop, man, where he belongs, as he's basically gotten back into his persona. He knows who he is now as he's making his way across. We're getting more of the Melvin Potter story as we know that costume is going to be coming into play. We see Foggy as he's still caring for Karen, as you're not basically lurched over a toilet unless you're in a bad way. Basically, she's definitely in the worst way possible. On this page again, we've seen the degradation of Karen. This is one of the worst panels right here, as she is just like a skeleton of her former self. Man, it's so ghastly, but it's again coming by way of the fact that she's kind of starting to get off of the stuff that she was on, and hopefully maybe find a little bit of that redemption
Yeah, but she's
herself.
thinking about jumping out the window, and then she sees her boyfriend from Mexico out the window. It's terrified. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I love as a reader, you're so scared for Foggy in this moment too, because he's found her, like her guy has found her, right? And so now she's dragged Foggy into this, and she knows that here,
Yes.
and he's just like, "Oh,
Yes,
I'm calling
exactly.
the police." It's like, dude, he's gonna bust in this door and kill all of us before you hang up the phone, man.
It's
We got
like,
to figure this out. We got to move,
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Foggy, yeah, he's an innocent man here. He doesn't know the natures of everything bad that can happen in the world,
Right.
specifically by this guy right here. So
He's had it too good for too long. He's forgotten what it's like. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. Best intentions though, man. But again, yeah, I mean, not only is it the look of fear, but again, it's the gaunt look on her face here as she is just like, she's so thin basically at this point here. She's yeah, crazy. All right. We see Matt continuing down here. Man, talk about something that feels right out of like this feels like the origin story of something out of Sin City, man. We've seen Marv, I feel like, do this within the
Oh yeah.
pages of Sin City here, just like just chilling yeah, on the top of a car as it's speeding down the freaking street here, jumping off, just trying to
Hmm.
get from point A to point B, as if it's something that you could just do every single day without anyone
Yeah.
giving a crap about.
He's not getting hit by the car this time. He's just using it as like a vaulting platform. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we see this character here still chilling outside here, being menacing. The cops get called here from Foggy. Man, this guy does not care at all, though. Look at the size of this thing. What is it? I'm not an aficionado here. That looks like a freaking saw it off. I don't know what that is, but it's going to do some damage.
That's a side off. Yeah, because he killed those two guys in the restaurant with it earlier. Yeah.
It was like table mounted underneath the table or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
sawed off double
crazy.
barrel.
Man, cops get taken out here. We see the window get blasted through. And finally, we start to see a little bit of the craziness that's coming down the pipeline with the costume here, man. And when I say crazy, I mean it because they basically get a psychopath to go out here and just do damage. Like if you can't tear down Matt Murdock, if doing that is not going to do the trick, we got to take out his alternate persona here, which is to make it look as though Daredevil is a crazy person here out doing damage. Ah, man, poor freaking Karen, man. Again, Foggy has the best intentions, does everything right here, but she knows that if she's going to make sure that he's safe, she's got to get out of there, and he's not going to let her do it without taking him out a little bit. Man, so he's knocked out cold.
Really? That's the only resolution to this situation?
Yeah, I thought that part was kind of weird too. She's like, "I'm gonna go convince him that he's okay" or whatever, and I'm like, "All right,
Yeah.
sure."
No, and then she starts thinking, I love, like, this is what I was talking about earlier with Miller and addiction. Immediately when she's like, maybe, she starts thinking about her boyfriend. Maybe he's still holding. Maybe I can get another fix. Even though she's been trying to turn it around and has been staying clean. Immediately she's kind of like into this fight or flight, response, and she just takes off and thinks she can explain her way out of this situation, and kind of get high again in the process. It felt like very believable in that sense because it seems kind of completely illogical and super rushed and
Yeah,
impulsive.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I guess that's the point, right? That addiction is just
Yeah.
Well,
drives you
and
crazy.
Karen has been shown to be that character that it's not about the right thought in the moment, it's about the first thought in the moment, that first instinct, and that's definitely her first instinct in this moment here. But we've seen it again in every action that she's taken throughout the series so far. Yep. So we know that Daredevil, right, in quotations, is out there, jumping on the rooftops here. But we see again the puffy blue jacket here breaking through that, the doorway here, smacking him, kicking him in the face here. Basically, this is Matt reclaiming the mantle, right, reclaiming the identity of Daredevil. As we see all of these action set pieces taking place here, man, we have Wilson Fisk getting all the details of everything that's happening. We see Karen and basically her captor at this point here trying to escape for all intents and purposes. Police are still out there trying to take him out, man. Nothing good is happening here. And above all the action here on the rooftops, we see Matt again reclaiming it, man, taking this dude out, but you still see the maniacal smile of this dude as he's trying to lay waste to Matt here, taking him out with the billy club, smacking him around. But then we see, dude, like Matt's no joke, right? He's not just a boxer, but he's also had, training by stick, man. Takes out the wrist, takes out the throat, puts him down, and kicks dude right across the face, man. Like he totally owns this fight. In fact, this is like the first time throughout this entire story arc that he's owned anything. And man, again, man determined here. he says it. I love the small lettering on this page. Like he's speaking to himself, just like a whisper. Karen, like that's the only thought in his mind. That's his only action to be had right now, is knowing what's going on in the streets below where he needs to get there.
Yeah, it's like he's recentering, refocusing. Great little Mortal Kombat Chuck Norris like roundhouse kick, taking down the guy. I
Yes.
love Daredevil when he uses pressure points. It's like one of his skills, right? He can just sense everything, sense everyone's weaknesses, and take care of that. Yeah, great usage there.
Yeah. Good call with the Chuck Norris here, man, with our bearded
Hmm.
Matt too. So we see again, oh man, like yeah, Stu, you called it. So dude is finally shot by the cops here, man. Karen not caring about his well-being, and I'm not saying she should be, right? But not caring about his well-being at all, goes into his jacket, finds the real thing that she was going after, as the guns are still being fired throughout the alleyway here. She's just looking for one final reprieve, one final way out, and we see dude reaches back up with another one of his pistols here at the last second, but we see the silhouette coming by way of the icicles on the rooftop here. Hits it just at the strategic moment where it's going to drop, hits dude in the arm. The billy cubs, they come flying, knocking people out, and we see the syringe still fully not injected here, laying on the ground. Man, again, visual storytelling. And again, this is something that we saw previous pages back here. Let me go back here as we saw it. Gosh, where was it? Oh man, it must have been so many pages. Here we go. So we see again on the rooftops, we get the clue of what's going to be happening here as he's jumping across rooftop to rooftop, and we see this falling icicles here, and we get that delivered later on. Again, as it's the means of saving Karen, as it hits the dude right in the right place. Yeah, we get the final man redemptive. It's almost as if it's the redemption of both of them, right? Like Matt's finally regained his composure. He understands, you know that he can overcome all of these things here. Karen hopefully is starting to understand that, while she had succumbed to the temptation here, she didn't actually go through with it. Hopefully there's a little bit of redemption there as she finally has found Matt, the person that that she knows will be able to provide some kind of forgiveness.
Yeah, I'd like to think that. I think she just got caught up in the moment and dropped that syringe.
You think
That's kind of
so?
what I got from it, but the fact that I think you're right though. In this moment here, so both of the items of her desire are on the same page. Matt's here and her drugs are here, and she's choosing Matt and she's breaking down. So I think you're up. I think your assessment is absolutely correct. But I think leading up to it, it was more of like a she was saying goodbye, find the vein, one last shot, whatever it was, and then everything that was going to kill her
Yeah,
gets taken
exactly.
out.
Yep,
Then Matt shows up, and
yep,
at that, but I think you're ultimately right. When Matt's finally there, she reprioritizes her needs, and this is what we get right here.
yeah,
Well, and that's the great part about really masterful writing, is that it's open to interpretation. I don't think there's a right answer. Depending on your own mindset and maybe where you are, with your mentality. On a dark day, this could be Karen, like you said, like dropping it, not on instinct, but just mistakenly, and then having this happen. On a good day though, maybe it's her finding that redemption. Who knows?
She was saying her piece previously, and now that she's able to live and move on, I think she chose the right path here. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So we see basically the after effects of everything that's happened here. We see dude being taken away. We see Daredevil costumeless here on the rooftop. We see Ben Urich writing the story here, being the reporter that he is. And finally, now that Matt is back, now that Matt has his costume, what a great way, in fact, here, the costume was destroyed completely in the first issue of this arc here. What a great way to get it back too. Like, we didn't have to spend a beat with him going back to Melvin and being like, hey Melvin, by the way, I'm a little bit broke, I'm not an
That's
attorney,
true.
can you do me a
Hmm.
solid? We didn't need to do that because there was such a great mechanism in the story for him to get the suit back here, as we're delivered God and Country, which is basically Matt has gone through the trials and tribulations. He's now fully Daredevil now. He's back in the saddle and he's ready to do some damage. And again, we talk about those corner boxes.
Yep.
Look how fantastic that is, dude. Just the fist putting the
Suiting up.
red glove back on here. We're back. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like in a way, Born Again could have ended, without right here, with Matt and Karen embracing and Ben kind of writing the story. Like these these um these couple issues serve as like an interesting epilogue to me. It's just it's kind of like it's kind of a wild swerve in another direction. Um, when Nuke gets introduced, but in a way they can almost be two separate stories. But it's interesting how he ties it all together. I think he does stick the landing, but and it's got some great scenes, but for a minute there I was just like, man, where are we going with all this? And we'll get into it, but
It's definitely a curveball
yeah.
ending to this that we're going to get into. I think you're right. If they would have went, maybe if they would have broke tradition and they maybe went to like 33 pages or something like that. What, I don't know the page counts of the previous issues, but whatever it was, if they added 6 or 7 more pages, they could have outlined the destruction of Wilson Fisk through the Daily Bugle articles, through Ben and the
Yes.
resurrection of Daredevil, and they could have end capped it right there.
Right.
Right. But instead we're going to throw these curveballs, introduce a few more characters, we're going to dial it up another notch, and we're going to create more chaos, and then we're going to close it out. And so, yeah, an interesting choice to your point.
Well, and I think it may have been some of the storytelling mechanisms of the time as well, because from what I understand, his time on Daredevil ends with the ending of the Born Again arc. But what the original intention was is that actually he was supposed to continue the story for at least a couple issues and do a storyline with Walt Simonson as the artist. So I'm almost thinking
Oh
maybe
wow.
it was kind of overlapping arcs, right? We kind of had the greater parts of Born Again, which is like the fall and rise of Daredevil, which leads into the Nuke story, which then could have led into whatever that other story with Walt Simonson could have been. Granted, this does spell out, we needed to understand Nuke was called out in the previous issues. We need to know who Nuke is, what the threat is, and how that's going to be delivered. But yeah, you guys, man, hit the nail on the head. This feels thematically totally different than what we've been delivered here, but it also plays into the fact that we're kind of back into the superheroics now.
Yep.
Yep. So within this issue here, God and Country, we finally understand who Nuke is, which is, man, just a pill popping maniac warmonger who's out here to do business at the highest bidder, so long as it's for our boys, on American soil. Crazy stuff being delivered here, man, as he, takes out this entire, outpost here. And man, I love this as we get to see the ammo count as he's just taking people out left and right. And we see the bullet count just go up, like up, up, up. And we see the death and destruction all around him. Crazy stuff being delivered here.
Yeah, it's kind of like a video game, right? You're kind of watching your ammo, and it's a weird parallel. But even back then, it's crazy. It's a good usage there,
It's definitely, yeah, the most maniacal version of Contra I've ever seen.
and it helps with scale too, because like you can see the destruction, but to get a bullet count, it just adds to that knowledge. It's like, damn, dude, he's just going ham. And if you didn't have that, you have the panels there to help you out. But I like having solid numbers of just how destructive this dude is.
Yeah, totally. And it reminds me of the movie Alien, and I don't recall or I'm sorry, Aliens. I don't remember
Yeah,
what
yeah,
what year that came out, but it kind of reminds me. It's like the antithesis of what we saw with Ripley, as she was like she had one gun left, and it was like you saw the ammo counter on the gun going lower and lower and lower as she was trying to get
yeah.
back to Newt. This
Guess
you
what?
see,
Guess what year it was?
was it
1980,
1986?
1986.
There we go. Magical year.
Let's
Magical
go.
freaking year. Man. Yeah, but on this, it's the antithesis, man. We see like the bullet count go up, up, up as he's just doing damage here. It's just the total inverse of that idea as like, yeah, he just wants more and more bullets like to be pummeled into these people.
And to make it even crazier, this issue is released in July, and Aliens comes out on July 18th,
Wow.
Dude,
1986.
there was something in the water, man. 1986.
Absolutely. And it's definitely, yeah, I definitely believe in like creative coincidences like that. But I think it's awesome that all these different things in the art form kind of formed a confluence and came together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see Nuke here. He's on the come down here as his mission's been delivered here. He's taken reds previously. He's taken whites. We get Wilson kind of getting the updates that Nuke is on the way, and we finally see, man, Karen. She's with Matt. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to get her back to, I guess, some kind of semblance of normalcy as she's coming down off of all the junk that she was on. Embracing Matt one more time here again. Title pages are total works of art here, but we see thematically this is totally different here, as we've seen basically, him kind of being slowly taken down and then saved, and now we see the embrace between these two characters. And again, totally thin, totally emaciated, as she's trying to finally kick, the thing that she's been on here for years and years.
Yeah, using his senses too, right? That dialogue across the top and the black panel up top, that far right one's talking about he knows exactly when to say whatever and how much to eat and how to touch her and how to relax her muscles and how to make her sleep. So like he's definitely using his abilities to help her detox right here.
Yeah, exactly. Man, it goes to show like the power set of Matt is so unique and can be used in so many different facets. That's just so different than,
Hmm.
super strength, flying, all those kind of different things.
Yeah, it's way more intimate, right? It's not like
Absolutely.
brooding and overpowering. It's more intimate.
Yes, absolutely.
That bottom right panel with Foggy and Ben is just one of my favorites. Yeah, the previous page. I don't. I just yeah, just another random shot of Mazzucchelli love. I just love the way it looks. Ben lighting the cigarette and Foggy in the background with the paper kind of tucked under his chin. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, again, like very natural feeling individuals, right? Nothing feels static. Everyone is in motion here. And again, like yeah, that the thought of like him holding it under his chin, man, I wouldn't think to ever draw that, but it feels so natural and it feels like a snapshot taken out of like, people sitting in a park.
Yeah, it's like open a briefcase, take a newspaper out. Where are you going to put the newspaper? On the wet bench? No, you're going to tuck it. You're going to take care of your briefcase. You're going to move on. You're right. I would never have thought of that. It's
Hmm.
great.
Yeah. It's that artistic eye, man. We see again they're continuing their conversation here. We see Nuke continuing his journey here on the plane, getting ready to meet up with Fisk here under the guise of him doing something for the Americans. Again, like this was called out in the cartoonist kayfabe video here, so I won't linger on it too much. But it's worth bringing up here. Man, he is so like drinking the Kool Aid of America that he won't even drink like a Heineken or anything like that. Man, he's drinking something from he's probably drinking Old
Yeah.
Milwaukee right here, man. It's so hysterical.
That shot in the top right of Glory with just the coloring and her taking the picture, like that's one of those images that got seared into my brain the first time I read this. I don't know what it is about it, but like every time I see that character, I think of that image. I don't. It's just so striking.
Yeah, that is. Again, it's a different artistic approach here. It almost reminds me of Bill Sienkiewicz in some of the portrait work that he's done previously as well. There's a lot of
Oh, good call.
yeah. I think the influence would be inverse. There would probably be Mazzucchelli influencing Sienkiewicz, man. But yeah, definitely a very the approach is definitely paralleled for sure.
Yeah, you're saying about how much this guy's drinking the Kool-Aid. He's a face painter, man. Of course he's drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah, when you start painting your face, yeah, flashback to some
Yeah, what
Seinfeld
is that?
stuff.
Is that face
Yeah,
paint or a permanent tattoo? Like that is, yeah, that is just kind of.
it could be either one, man.
Yeah,
That's a good
that's what I was
call.
gonna ask because like that definitely comes off as a tattoo to me for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's even
It's like
worse. Hey, you got to support the
tell us
team.
your government property without telling us your government property.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. So again, we see Fisk here. He's getting prepped. He knows that Nuke's on the way. He's starting to kind of like, figure out what he's going to do to the city and what his plan is going to be. Matt getting rid of that Chuck Norris beard here, shaving down, getting prepped. He's getting back to the person that he was. Man, and we see Karen again on the bed, not with Matt, but partially still with Matt here as the costume lays there, right there, for her, so that there's some kind of semblance of him being there.
Mhm. And shout out to Netflix for kind of emulating this apartment really well, right? He's got that giant window. He's got like the rustic, he's got the exposed pipes, the hardwood, the old-timey feel. Like they captured that really well in the Netflix show
Yeah, and
too.
all the windows everywhere too, because who cares about the fact that there's light everywhere? Like, I mean, that could be such a distraction in real life as you like, how do you close the blinds on this? But when you're a blind man, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think he mentions that he got it for cheap because of some kind of glare or something like that. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
funny.
that's true. That's true for sure. So we continue. Ben is still working on parts of his story here. He's starting to question the nurse, but we see that they're kind of locked in, into the cell right here with a couple individuals. And we see one of these cops is clearly crooked here, pulls out the gun. She's about to give her statement to Ben as he can continue his piece on the kingpin of crime. And she gets taken out here, man. And you don't see the after effects here. Again, this is a Marvel comic, but man, you feel it as you can feel, I don't think that these these strokes of the line here are lost on anyone. Like the color of her is completely all red. Like these are jagged lines here that are being splattered forth from, basically the point of impact here. Here's the concerning part here. Dude, she don't drop that camera at all. She's there for the moment, man. She's
She's a
locked
pro.
in. Yeah. Ben's shocked. She's just like, this is gonna make for a great picture.
Yeah, it's incredible. Incredible scene.
Yeah.
What about that muzzle flash on the guy, right? So he's shooting forward, that muzzle flash is lighting him up.
Oh yeah, for
Love
sure.
that.
Yeah. You see it, yeah.
Mhm.
Man, and again, like you see the craziness that's happening now in the confines of this small cell, man. Those are not big places here. It basically just fits all of the individuals here. This has got to be pure chaos to be here, like, to be seeing these actions take place. And we see it's not just the one man. This guy pulls the gun, he's taking out other cops here. Ben, in a final moment of heroics here, finally is able to save, the photographer's life here, takes out the gun,
Yeah.
pulls him down. And man, like I feel like saving his wife changed him intrinsically as a character, as he's able to act
Yeah,
heroically in
he's
this
had
moment.
enough.
Takes the butt of the gun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no stopping him at this point. Especially, man, this is him smacking him, pulls the gun up. You see the blood splatter. It comes back down though, and you see the look on his face. He will not let this happen again. It's crazy. It's awesome to see again the progression of that character. But again, now we see the after effects. The only people left in this room right now are
Yeah,
those
those
two.
overhead shots, man, it's so great in that. That's one of my favorite ones right there. Seeing what happened to everybody in that room, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly, man. And again, yeah, small confines. Like you see how everything took place in there. It's just it's incredible.
Well, and what sells the scene too, she stops taking those pictures, right? He's flipping out. He's just smacking him right with the barrel or with the gun and stuff, and she's kind of taken aback. She stops taking pictures, and you just see that look on his face.
Yeah,
That's great.
exactly. And you can see like, right here taking the pictures here.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Violent people with violent actions don't phase her.
Mm-hmm.
Ben taking action like this, something out of
Losing it.
character,
Yeah.
stops. Yeah, yeah, it
Right.
definitely
Yep.
pauses her for sure. We finally get Nuke on US soil again here, meeting with Wilson Fisk here. Man, evoking a lot of thoughts here, man, as Wilson Fisk is definitely playing into his hand, as he knows exactly what it takes to kind of.
Yeah, he's doing his best. He's doing his best General Patton here for
Yes,
sure.
yeah, exactly here. Look at this, cradling himself in the flag here, like talking about our boys, talking about, doing things for the good of the country, and putting him on this mission with all of this iconography behind him, man. A
Yeah.
huge flag in the back, the flag that he was cradling himself in, all of the war memorabilia over here. Like he knows exactly what he's doing, and you can see on his face, man, he is just getting more and more hyped to go on this mission. You see the tenseness of his neck. Man,
Mm-hmm.
it absolutely insane.
This is like Kingpin definitely, easily manipulating Nuke, but this also feeds into Kingpin's own delusions, self delusions, and beliefs, false beliefs about who he is as a legitimate businessman, and I think that's been part of like kind of the underlying current with him throughout this whole story is, he's really established himself now, and he's, um, you know, doesn't have to get his hands dirty, but he's legitimate now. He's a conglomerate, an organization. I think they keep calling it throughout the story. So I think part of him definitely believes what he's saying to Nuke here.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, he's still the kingpin of crime. Like he still knows the means in which he's going to do every single thing that he's doing. But he knows, that he needs to stop these things from happening. It can't go to press. He needs to stop this by all means. That means is Nuke for sure. Again, we see that vertical panel here made famous here, in my opinion, by Frank Miller. We got kind of like a reintroduction of where Matt is at this time here. He's working in the diner, just making ends meet. He's definitely not an attorney. He hasn't gotten, his law license back yet. He's just trying to make ends meet and be there for Karen as she's going through her struggles. But I love this. Again, we talked about this powers previously. He's talking about the best way to make a burger, right? Give the burger about 10 more seconds and then they'll be perfect, man. He hears the sizzle. He could probably just sense the rendering of the meat as it's being cooked there. Like, I wonder what
Yeah.
universes, like what
Right.
other multiverses, like, is he just like in different professions where he's just like doing things like so precisely and so perfectly.
I think even in wasn't there in Devil's Reign, like when he brings the guy to the doctors, they were like, you would have made a hell of a surgeon or a doctor, but no, you chose to be a vigilante or something like that. Like that was a commentary in that run too. So to your point, he could be using that skill set for a lot of different purposes, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
he chooses this life.
yeah, exactly. Good call with the doctor. Yeah, man, he would make a great doctor. God, just if only things were a little bit different in his upbringing.
Yeah, he has to settle for being a great lawyer instead.
Yeah. All right. So, Matt, he's off of his shift. He's getting ready to go back and see Karen here. That ain't necessarily going to happen, though, as, a chopper, like, basically sets down right in the middle of Hell's Kitchen here, which, I don't live there, but I can only imagine that's not common practice to happen here, as Nuke is just laying waste to everything around him, causing, mass destruction all around here at the diner right there. Man, okay, so we talked about all of the new mechanisms in which Mazzucchelli was telling his visual storytelling. Man, like the weight of this explosion, the crackle that's being used here. This feels almost Kirby-esque in this panel right here, especially with the automatopoeia that breaks the panel as well, man. Like that's crazy. That feels finally super heroic in the way that previous issues didn't feel.
Yeah, and talk about jarring, him just landing in the middle of the street in that helicopter with that BFG, and just
Mhm.
laying waste. Oh, and that desperation, Matt running through the streets, it's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. He's got that suit back. He's gonna have to put it into action for sure. Again,
Yeah,
yeah, Nuke doing damage here.
yeah,
Craziness that's happening here. Man, they finally get back here. She is not in a great way as these buildings are being destroyed through and through. But she kept the one thing safe that she knew Matt was going to need to save the day, man. The thing that she was embracing, gives it to him, lets him do business, man, as she is there. Little bit heavy-handed, little bit melodramatic here, but man, I gotta say, I kinda love it still. It's still super, super effective. Matt's finally in costume here. We see Nuke doing his thing, but we see the baton smacking across this temple here, coming back, ricocheting off the building here, right back into Matt's hand, and we see the battle's on. Give me a red.
I love that bottom panel with Nuke is so good. It
Dude.
just looks fantastic.
Yeah, it just goes to show again, he's smacked upside the head here. I mean, if it's hitting you in the temple here, that would have knocked any normal person out here. Not this dude though.
yep.
Talk about a piece of original art worth owning, dude. Good lord.
Yeah. I mean, this is arguably the most famous, picture from this entire, run, the Born Again run. When you talk about that, you Google it. This is the thing that's going to pop up here, man. And again, it's the reemergence of Daredevil. It's the first time that we've really truly seen Matt again in the suit, ready to rock and roll, which leads us into basically the culmination, right? The finale of this Armageddon issue 233. So again, we're delivered Nuke here, taking out the city, doing a bunch of damage here, but we see again Daredevil's there, putting all his powers into play. We got the bullets spraying across the rooftops here as he's, you know, just deftly dodging them here, using everything in his, in his means to block the bullets here, diving out of the way. Nuke's continuing his assault here. Man, this is really incredible artistic choices here, man. We've talked about the zipatone and the patterns. Look at the way that they're overlaid here. This pattern is completely different than this pattern here, and you can see cuts, right? The very clean cuts that are being used here over and over and over. That looks like the pattern on Ben's wife's dress right here. In fact, that's being used. Or that one right there too. Really crazy. Again, artistic choices that are being made here, but so 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 effective.
Yeah, that original page would be really cool to look at with a microscope and just see what that looks like. And again, I love anything. I love when our heroes are dodging bullets and stuff. So it's a real great sense of movement there with that shadow character bouncing across the rooftop, getting behind that, I don't know, fire, chimney or whatever it might be, and the bullets ricocheting everywhere. It's so good. But I didn't notice that layering that you showed before. That's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. So Nuke is in hot pursuit here. He's going after our boy. They're doing battle. Wilson continuing to get updates here. I mean, everything's getting destroyed here. Wesley's getting a little bit nervous that this is maybe not necessarily the right move to make here. Matt's doing business though. Again, he's fully back here. He's able to, land some blows, dodge a couple things here, maybe takes a little bit something to the face. But man, you could tell, again, putting those ninja tactics into play here, doing a little bit of the Three Stooges as he gouges his eyes a little bit. Man. And again, we talk about the storytelling. Wilson Fisk looking out here
Yes.
as we see, Hell's Kitchen just in flames in the reflection of the binoculars. Man, again, so awesome. Such a great look at the devastation that's happening.
Yeah, it reminds me of the reflection of Matt's glasses when his building got blown up.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Great callback, yeah.
Yeah. We continue on here. Again, he's doing his best to hold his own here with this, roided out, pilled up, psychopath. Gets to kick him off the building here. Look at this. I mean, he gets, fried on the freaking lines here, falls down. He ain't done yet, though, man. He's still got that gun in hand, and Nuke's mission ain't finished here, man. It's just absolutely crazy the level of devastation that he's doing and what Matt's putting him through and not stopping him.
Yeah, I love that shot of him shooting the gun off the ground, like when he's lying on the ground. Yeah, it just looks so well done.
Covered in flames and stuff.
Yeah.
The panel above that, him falling towards the car with all the other city goers. And there she is taking the damn pictures again, right?
Yeah,
so Gloria's
exactly.
doing her job over there, but the cops and people dragging bodies off the street and everything, like you can really feel the chaos in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about chaos, man, it doesn't stop there. Again, we see him emerging from everything engulfed in flames as Daredevil's still just doing whatever he can. He's got the gun in hand now, smacks him across the face, breaks the butt of the gun off, for God's sake, doesn't stop him whatsoever. So you're starting to see the level of threat that you have here, man. Like, he's doing everything in his power. Daredevil, again, we talked about superpowers, man. He doesn't have super strength. He has his training, but he's just a regular dude for all intents and purposes, and he's given this guy his all. You could tell this is becoming a threat that's outside of the scope that Daredevil might be able to take out.
Dude, shoot down that helicopter was awesome.
That is again
wild.
intense. When we talk about the threat level for Daredevil, blowing up a helicopter in Hell's Kitchen doesn't come into play. It does definitely right here, though, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, he straight up kills the pilot, right? Like, that's the implication here.
Yeah, how many instances do we have of something like this happening with Matt? It's pretty crazy, pretty wild for me.
I mean, yeah, they're usually very introspective, very, Matt focused. This is like the entirety of Hell's Kitchen, right? This is everything being affected, which is why, as we turn the page here, when I talk about threat levels, man, this is why the big boys get called in, man. This is an Avengers level threat. This is why we get Captain America, right? We get Thor coming in here. We get Iron Man coming in to stop all of the, all of the devastation that's happening as you see, the wreckage of the helicopter behind Iron Man as he's telling everyone stand down. And I love this. Like, he hears the soft hum of the computer circuitry that's generating enough power to level a building. Man,
dude.
Like,
Ben's narration through, like, when Cap first shows up, a soldier with a voice that could command a god and does. And then you see Thor
with the crackle.
Yeah, it's so yeah, and plus on top of that, getting to see Mazzucchelli draw the Avengers, like, it's doubly sweet.
And this is one of those moments where, like, we always question this moment in modern comics, and I don't know how many times they've done this, and I'm sure it's not the first or last time, but like when we see these events happening with a single character, and we're like, where the hell are the Avengers the whole time? Like, okay, here they are. They're showing up because it escalated that much, and it's kind of cool. And this is what they would do, probably, right? They would. Everybody stand down. We're taking control of the situation. Don't even think about it.
Yeah, every time you think of an excuse where you're like, well, why didn't that happen? Like, he had the foresight to be able to deliver some kind of answer to that question, which is, again, master storytelling. It makes me long for the fact that we never got a long-standing run of Captain America by Frank Miller. I feel like, again, the way that he introduces the character and some of the lines that happen later on here as we flip the pages, he has such a beautiful look at, like, the mentality of that character.
Dude, go back one page. I love that scene top right with Nuke where he's like, give me a white, and that look of shame on Cap's face, like he feels partially responsible almost. I thought that was just, there was so much emotion conveyed there. I love that.
Oh yeah, I mean they're complete opposites, even though it's under the guise of them again representing the same thing. He wears the
Right,
star on his chest and the A on his forehead. He's got whether it's paint or tattoo, he's got the flag on his face, but they're not the same.
right.
Does Cap know
Yeah.
what that means? Give me a white in this moment. Do you guys have that back that
You know, in the same way that we understand it as readers of what that means, I have to assume that, maybe he doesn't know exactly what it is. I have to feel like he gets the
Yeah,
meaning
well, because
behind
it's a
it.
look of shame to your guys' point, and so we as the reader have the
Mhm.
knowledge of having seen this pattern before. Give me a red, give me a white, you know what I mean? But what I interpret here is that Cat might know what that means, outside of what we the readers understand. So yeah, I love that shot too. Great pick.
Yeah. And knowing the time frame of this comic coming out and the greater landscape, specifically like the drug landscape of that
Yeah, the
era,
inference is there for sure.
you
Yeah.
know, exactly, yeah. Like you have to understand or expect that he understands exactly what that means. All right. So again, Wilson Fisk being menacing, being threatening, people wanting to basically tell him how things are going to work out. Wilson Fisk ain't going to have that whatsoever here. Takes the guy by the neck. Again, it's what we don't see, but it's what's inferred and what we hear about the menacing action that's taking place that makes him so just diabolical, man. Like such a crazy individual here that won't let anything stand in his way. We all understand each other now, don't we, gentlemen? All he had to do was take out the one dude, all right, like the vocal adversary, man, and everyone's gonna fall back in line.
Yep.
Yeah. We get the church. We see the devastation of the city here as people are trying to do their best to get to safety. Find a place that they can stay. As again, most of Hell's Kitchen now has been laid to waste by nuke. We see the characters that have survived. We get a rekindling of Matt and Sister Maggie here. But more importantly, we know that Karen is okay. We see them embrace, and again, Matt uses his senses. He knows someone's on the rooftop. Basically, the journey isn't done yet, and he meets up with Captain America on the rooftops as they're trying to figure out why did this happen, why was Nuke here, and why was Hell's Kitchen his target.
Another great showcase of Matt's power, just being able to sense the presence of another hero or an
Yes,
individual. We're going to see that in other runs in the future. Other writers are going to steal that, and I'm sure it's been used before. But again, that perception that he has is so cool to explore.
Exactly, yeah, and I think, it reminds me of the Zdarsky run when he was meeting up with Spider-Man, and he talked about, like, coiled energy, yeah, like
That's what I was saying before. It's like he's the strongest of all of us, and yeah, I love that.
yeah,
look how clean that line work is on the cap on the top right. It's so good,
yeah.
so good.
Again, yeah, and it just makes me long for the fact I more than anything, I just wanna know what his Captain America run could have been like. That could have been something truly
I
special.
think we're going to get a preview of it right here in these coming pages about, and this is very reminiscent of Avengers, the movie Avengers that came out when he was kind of snooping around in
Yeah,
in the ship, and he's finding all the dark secrets of how they're manipulating the energy that they've found and stuff like that. Like this is what this is right here in a way. And I think if he leaned into that, that would have been a really interesting story.
Exactly, and this panel right here is what really calls that out. He basically goes to the general that made all of this happen, right? That was working with Wilson Fisk that put Nuke into play. And he's calling into question. He's like, "Well, where's your commitment? Where's your loyalty? I'm loyal to nothing, General, except the dream." Holding the flag there. That's interesting. I mean, talk about cutting to the core of a character in the same way that we've spent this entire arc getting to the core of who Matt is and who Daredevil is. Man, in one panel, you deliver your elevator pitch for exactly what your viewpoints on Captain America are, and it's so true to what this character always should be.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Shout out to that sun setting shot in the top left with Cap and his silhouette.
yeah,
Man,
man, yeah,
yeah.
and
So
that's
simplistic too, but the color palette is
it's
gorgeous.
unlike there's not a single panel in this whole book that looks like that. It's
yeah,
done
very
so
true.
differently.
Hmm.
And then that panel after it with Nuke on the newspaper is the one I was talking about earlier.
Hmm.
I was just
Yeah.
gawking at that one the first time I saw it. It's
Hmm.
incredible.
Yeah, and it's even different than the other ones, man. This very much just looks like it was a pencil sketch here with some color overlays by the colorist on here, but that's
Yeah.
even different than the Polaroids that we saw earlier as well. So again,
Yeah.
still evokes that same great feeling though of the newsprint within the newsprint of a comic book, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So we keep going here. Nuke ain't done yet. He's been locked up here, but there's corruption. There's ways to get him out. This ain't over. Basically, we see Captain America again, like Nick, you were saying here, very evocative of the movie here. As he's doing his own independent research. He's trying to figure out what's happened here, and we kind of understand what happened with Nuke and why he is the way he is. And we see it's Project Rebirth, and for all intents and purposes, this is a reiteration, a future version of the same program that gave Steve Rogers the super soldier serum, albeit this is a Vietnam era version of that, and it definitely didn't have the same effects on a person that maybe wasn't as pure of heart as Steve Rogers was.
Right.
Yep. Future versions, Grant Morrison reinterprets this entire thing in one of his new X-Men issues too, as the Weapon Plus project here, as he's one of the 11 or 12 people that has been part of that program as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how they've matured that program over time.
Yeah,
it's really cool to see that progression.
Yeah, definitely. Again, we see the newspapers he is saying are lying about him. He was a man on a mission for the betterment of America and of Wilson Fisk, who is standing up for American ideals. He gets himself out here. He ain't taking one red anymore. He's taking the whole bottle. He sees red. He's out to take out Ben Urich and not undo the damage here, but make sure that there's recompense for everything that's been said about him.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's a Captain America book, right?
Yeah,
Crazy.
exactly.
Crazy.
But again, that's what makes me long for knowing what that would be.
Yeah. What are we doing?
Yep. So we further see again, Matt taking on the mantle of Daredevil. We see, the legitimacy that Wilson Fisk is looking for, but is not going to last for very long here. Nuke's out. Nuke's doing damage here. We can see, though, Captain America. This is awesome. You see the look of shock, as the bullet pings off of the shield. And man, he does that move where he just uses it and battering rams and pummels him into the wall. And you see the cracks of everything around him as that pressure, the immense pressure from a dude that's taken super soldier serum, putting him through his paces.
Yeah, I take that look on his face as like, I just shot at a god. You know what I mean? Like, what is Captain America to him? I wonder, right? It's like, it's got to be some kind of a symbol of whatever. And he just shot it and he hits it directly in the center. And then that shield comes flying right at him. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Because you definitely know that he looks up to Captain America, but the twisted perception that he has of who that is and what it means to be Captain America.
Yeah, that face is definitely a mixed emotion face.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is awesome, man. Not only is he busting through a wall, but he's busting through the center of the SHIELD offices.
Yeah,
right
so good.
Right through the freaking logo as they crash down through the building, like truly onto the building and through the building here. Man, again, Cap has done damage to himself just to make sure that, again, everything stops there and that he's laid low. From here, we know that they got to get Nuke back here. All the things that have happened here, they still need some kind of means to pin this all on Wilson Fisk. There has to be a way to stop Wilson from getting away with all this stuff. And the only means to do that at this point now is truly going to be Nuke. Yep. Captain America knows it. Matt knows it. They're on their way. But again, more freaking helicopters in Hell's Kitchen, man. As the devastation continues, as Cap's holding him, getting ready to take him out. But they have a different means in which they're going to be taking him out. Matt jumps in to save the day, saves Cap. Can't quite get Nuke out there, as he is definitely, he's taken out by one of these things, which is kind of funny because we see the after effects. It's definitely a Marvel comic, right? So they can't do too much, but one of these things, that's going to do way more damage than the bits of splatter that we see. He ain't going to be alive after that, unless that super soldier serum that he got is, I don't know, maybe more effective than I thought it would be.
Yeah, he definitely takes one of those Gatling gun bullets like right to the chest. It has that same kind of splash effect that the rooftop has, just right in his chest. So they got away with a little bit there, I think, for sure. They couldn't have colored that red, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly. It's a comic code authority right there.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. This is a little bit hilarious too, as the taxi cab comes by there. Who's behind the wheel? The blind dude, friggin' Matt Murdock, as he's screeching down, trying to get Nuke to be able to finally confess to the actions that have taken place here. Get him to Ben Urich so the story can be complete. The confessions of a dying man. as he's weaving through the streets here. Cap's in a helicopter following along. They can't quite get there, though. They can't quite make it as Nuke is laid out on the table here. Definitely did not make it. And we have no means of pinning this all on Wilson Fisk quite yet.
Upside down shot of when Matt was in recovering, right? Same kind of Jesus pose in a way, but he's upside down at this point. So
yeah, it's
different outcome in this situation here. Still have that cross effect on this page.
The inverted cross, right? We have Jesus, and we have our
Mhm.
devil of the story.
Yeah.
Yep. So while we couldn't necessarily pin everything on Kingpin here, we have enough, right? We have enough to at least make the implications that he was somewhat behind all of this. We can point some fingers here, and it's all about public perception. The story is still told. The legitimacy of Wilson Fisk is done, and we get the final motif again of those eyes of a menacing, determined Wilson Fisk. At least I took that from him. Murdock, he thinks and plans. It ain't over. He still has something to say and something to do to Matt Murdock to, to finish out his master plan. But that's for another day. We end on Matt and Karen. Karen definitely looking much better here. Matt truly born again, Karen born again. And, the finalization of their arc, right? Both of their redemptive arcs, their rebirth, and, kind of the tearing down of Daredevil and rebuilding him back up, a more pure version for future writers to take over.
Yeah.
All right. So that finalizes the storyline of Born Again here in our gallery edition. We get to the preemptive issue 226, where Frank Miller took over writing duties for half of the story with Denny O'Neil, as it's kind of set placing, right? It's kind of letting Frank get back into the headspace of Matt and kind of figure out what it's going to mean, and kind of get to work with David Mazzucchelli as well and kind of script things out and see how his approach is going to be. Later on, we get a couple back matter here. We get
that is such an incredible piece of art right there. I mean,
the stained glass.
The stained glass, I could just stare at for hours. It's absolutely incredible.
Exactly, yeah. And there's so many different interpretations, right? We have different coloring attempts on it. We have the virgin version of it. As we get a better view of all the characters, we have Nuke in the stained glass. We have the nurse. We have Nick. We have
that's something I didn't notice at first. Like I didn't even notice that until I looked at it a little bit closer later after I read this, and I'm like, oh my god, it has the freaking characters in the background. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, and we have Maggie up high, right? His redemption, and we have Wilson Fisk, the devil down low.
I know, it's so good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just eating people. Great.
So awesome. We have our cover gallery here, which shows different coloring interpretations of each of our issues here. Specifically, here, let me show one of the variations here. Is this is colored in a blue palette. However,
instead of red or something, right?
Yeah, when we got our floppy here, this definitely had the red that was popping off here. I kind of like the way that this looks, though. I'm not sure which one I like better here, but definitely a different visual interpretation of that.
Yeah.
Yep. And Nick, like you were talking about here, we have some scripts in the back pages here. We have some layouts.
Yeah.
We have some awesome, again, just great back matter that we're going to be able to look at here regarding the greater story of Daredevil itself here, some of Frank's scripts. But guys, for all intents and purposes, that does it for Born Again. Any kind of final thoughts on this storyline? Any kind of closing, thoughts?
No, I'll kick it off. I'll say that I wasn't expecting it to be as rugged as it was. I mean, certainly when this book came out, it kind of reimagined what superhero comics could be and what kind of stories could be told. I mean, this story is a depressing story on your first read. Everything that Karen goes through, obviously everything that Matt goes through, and then the redemptive arc that both of those characters have, and just trying to get back on top of things. It definitely was eye-opening on the first read about just all the mature themes inside this book. So kudos to the team for being able to balance all that within a Comics Code era and getting the story out. And like I said, it really changed the game back in the day. And of course we have Dark Knight coming up in Sin City, and then we have a lot of key things happen in these issues which really set the stage for the characters that we know and love today.
Yep, so true. Stu, how about you, man?
Yeah, I think it's incredible to see, Miller, like we said, return to a title that he had already had so much success on, and done so many groundbreaking things with the character in the world of Daredevil, and really elevate his game, and make a timeless piece of art like this. Like Nick said, I really appreciate the street level grittiness of it, the authentic, real, lived in feeling of it, and I also like um, breaking down but also all the little bits of hope we got, and also learning, planting that little seed with his mother Maggie, and some things that can be picked on later, and expanded upon. But for all the things that um, he did for the character of Daredevil, and for comic books at this juncture in history, this one was a classic to revisit. I also want to shout out the Marvel Premiere Collection, man. It's only $15. Reads like a nice trade paperback, and they did a really good job um, reprinting. The colors really pop on it, So that edition, I definitely recommend to people out there looking to, just pick up a readable copy. Definitely
Yeah.
affordable, and done really well. So this was a joy to revisit, though. But I have to second Nick's word of caution. It is a harrowing story, first time through. So steel yourself.
Yeah, this is not the feel good comic of the summer, but I think it's an absolutely worthwhile journey to see. As as again, it takes a character, takes him through a 7-issue arc, which is arguably one of the tightest ways that you can go about this, and really tear a character down and reintroduce him in a more pure form, so that for the betterment of other creators too, as they can take on this character and tell new interesting stories with them. So again, Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli doing the absolute masterpiece of Born Again here. Guys, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this book, man. It's one of my absolute favorites here, and it's been a pleasure talking about it with both of you.